across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I'm your host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll be with you all the way to 10 o'clock. Stand by for 3 peerless hours of breaking news, compelling views and dynamic debate. Get it off your chest. Get on the phone and call me on 03444991000 or WhatsApp voice note me on the same number, and I promise to play your message out. It is Tuesday, July the 8th. Here's what's coming out. While Two-Tier Keir obsesses on his ludicrous one-in, one-out exchange deal with France, the truth about Labour's love for migrants emerges. The government is to hand immigration lawyers a staggering £61 million to help asylum seekers remain in Britain. That's a £14 million hike on the current astronomical sum of £47 million. Justice, the reason for this heartwarming generosity given by Sarah Sackman, she's the Justice Minister, me neither, never heard of her, is as pathetic as it is funny. Folks, there is no hope. Stand by, stay tuned for what Sarah Sackman, the legendary Justice Minister, Sarah Sackman, has to say about why this government's going to heap more mountains of cash onto the immigration lawyers who get all the asylum seekers to stay here. Good, isn't it? As I say, do you think there is any hope? 03444991000. Meanwhile, at the banquet tonight to celebrate, I use the term loosely, Macron's mystifying state visit, the King will announce that there are no borders between Britain and France. What the hell is he talking about now? There is a border, actually, you madge, and 21 miles of sea between us. The problem is, though, neither country seems prepared to observe these important boundaries. Why is that, do you think? 03444991000. Also tonight, the objections are piling in over Starmer's hilariously incoherent, as previously mentioned, one-in, one-out deal that is unlikely to ever happen. But on the off chance it does get off the ground, how will playing Swap the Foreigner with France solve the migrant crisis? 03444991000. Plus, a new report warns of the threat to freedom of speech posed by Ange Rayner's mad dash to impose on unsuspecting Brits a strict legal definition of Islamophobia, the results of which will mean that you can laugh at and criticise all other religions. But if you poke fun at Muslims, proceed straight to jail. Why is Islam alone getting this sinister special treatment? Anything to do with the Muslim vote that Labour's desperados are courting for all they're worth? 03444991000. And in an hour or so, I will be joined by the excellent Sarah Pochin, Reform UK's best and indeed only female MP. She's great. Looking forward to talking to her. Lots to talk about, actually, including why Macron is meeting all the party leaders. Starmer, obviously, Kemi Badenoch, and even that arrant water sports fool, Ed Davey. But not Nigel Farage. Why is that? 03444991000. Also tonight, calls are growing for ancient rock croc Roger Waters to be prosecuted for his defiant video passionately supporting Palestine action after the group was proscribed by the government. The 81-year-old Pink Floyd relic's obsession with hating Israel has led to numerous charges that he's a devout anti-Semite. Now the Campaign for Anti-Semitism has vowed that if the police don't arrest Waters, they will launch a private prosecution. Should the old boy do time? 03444991000. And finally, the guy in the gimp suit who's terrifying a seaside town, and the truth about that Jeffrey Epstein list of shame that the FBI now says doesn't exist. VIP men who were taken by Epstein's private jet, dubbed the Lolita Express, to the late ungreat billionaire's so-called pedo island in the Caribbean, will be heaving a sigh of relief, including, they say, Donald Trump, and of course our very own Prince Charming, Andrew, the not-so-grand old Duke of York. I'll get the latest from across the pond on that story. All that and so much more, so don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now, on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Tuesday night together. And without further ado, let's go over to my first excellent guest. He is, of course, columnist on The Sun, The Spectator, The Sunday Times, and Times Radio's Saturday morning man from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m, the great Rod Liddle. Welcome, Rod.
How you doing, mate? Good to see you.
You too. I know you want to talk about Glastonbury, and I did see your solution in The Spectator, and I liked it, that the way to deal with Glastonbury is to drop a small tactical nuclear bomb on the place and get rid of everyone there. I thought I had a ruthless solution. My idea was let them all in, the 200,000 or so middle-class pretend hippies, and then at the end of the 4 days, just lock the gates, don't let them out, just leave them there. Yours was a little more drastic, but if we could talk about that after the break, we'll get onto that then, if you don't mind. What do you make of the £61 million migrant legal aid bombshell? So basically, hitherto, for reasons best known to the Labour government, we've been handing immigration lawyers £47 million a year, so that they can fight the cases of asylum seekers in order for them to remain in Britain. And now, according to the Labour government, we're going to put that up to £61 million. And here's what the Justice Minister, Sarah Sackman, said to justify this. This will help us support the immigration system. In immigration, the new government is serious and ambitious about ending hotel use and increasing returns. This can only be done with the help of legal professionals, which is why supporting the capacity of that sector is crucial. I got a better idea. Why don't we not give migrants any legal aid at all and tell them if they want to fight their asylum cases, they can pay for it themselves? I think that might have quite a sort of dramatic effect. But Labour, their solution to our escalating migrant crisis is to give much, much more money to immigration lawyers. Do you think that's a good idea, Rod?
No, I think your idea is far better. And I don't see why we don't do it. Because we're the only country that does this. I mean, it's remarkable. There was a comment from the mayor of a French seaside town. Incidentally, I don't blame the French for much of this. I think they're doing what a sensible country would do, which is doing what they can not to let more migrants in and to get rid of them wherever they can, even if it's over the channel to England. Yeah. So I don't blame the French. And this French mayor said, it's not us doing all this. It's not us stopping, failing to stop the migrants. They go over to your country, you give them free legal aid, you give them somewhere to live, you give them benefits, you give them houses. Well, why would they not go? Yeah. It's your fault. And he's absolutely right.
Yeah, that's the mayor of a place called Wimereux, which is a rather nice North French town near Calais. He said exactly that. He just said, yeah. How do you expect us to tell them to stay here when all we do is give them a tent if they're lucky? You're giving them the world. No wonder they come across the channel.
It's remarkable. We literally are the only country which does this, and we do it for reasons. I suppose we do it because the Liberals have got hold of every single strand of our government, including the judiciary, the immigration courts, and so on. And we're the only people who play by strictly the rules, and we're done for it every single time. We've got to wise up. I think the migrant crisis is going to get worse and worse, and it'll get worse and worse under Starmer, because he is going to have to tilt to the left to please the jabbering morons on his back benches who are insisting that he has to take... They're doing nothing. They're saying they're human beings. They're human beings. So he's going to face real trouble from his backbenchers on asylum seekers. And it'll mean him caving in much as he did over the welfare bill. So it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And it's already got worse than when the Tories were in office.
And what struck me about this story is, you know the way government works. So this will be the Justice Department. We need to see the Prime Minister get on his good side. How do you get on Keir Starmer's good side? Well, we've got a solution. It involves giving lots of money to lawyers. So Starmer, oh yeah, I like that. I mean, these immigration lawyers are half the problem. I mean, I don't blame them. I mean, they're raking it in, but their job is to keep these people who arrive here illegally in the country, to plead the case of people who are mostly young men of military aid breaking into the country illegally. And these lawyers do that job very successfully. I think we now allow about 45% of all asylum seeker applications. And until about 3 years ago, it was a ludicrous 75%. The only country anywhere near us for agreeing to so many asylum applications, I think, is France, which is about 30%. And I think Germany, you know, that scion of liberalism, I think they allow about 5% to stay. So 45% down from 75%. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to get worse, though. And, you know, I think it should be 0%. I think that anyone who tries to come here illegally should, as a matter of course, be debarred entry because they've come here illegally. You know, I think that would be the deterrent. That would be my deterrent. And then we can get round to making sure that there is safe passage for asylum seekers who genuinely need it, such as women, children, disabled, elderly, and so on, instead of 28-year-old men with very good contacts in the drugs trade. So that's how I would do it. I think my suspicion is it's going to get worse. You're right about the French. They do allow about 30% in, but then they're horrible to them when they get there. Which is
they're horrible to everybody who's not French.
Yeah, no, that's right. But there's also the other thing about the immigration lawyers. What do they do in their spare time? They sit in judgment in immigration courts.
Oh my God! Did I tell you? But did we discuss this last week? If not, if you didn't see it, I must run it by you. It's my favourite ever. It's this: that a guy turns up a year or so ago. Was foisted upon the Sussex County Council for some reason. And he said, well, you know, I'm just a child, I'm 15 years old. So, you know, I need, obviously that will bolster my case to stay because I'm so young, I'm a child. And you need to look at special treatment. And the guys from Sussex County Council, and indeed, in fairness, the Home Office, they said to this guy, look, we don't mean to be overly critical, but when you say you're a 15-year-old child, we can't help noticing that your hair's grey. Therefore, we don't think you are a 15-year-old child. So this went to appeal, right? It's one of these immigration lawyers, you know, the kind of guy who won't deport people because their son doesn't like Albanian chicken nuggets, etc. So the Home Office and Sussex County Council said, well, you know, look, he's got grey hair. He's obviously not 15. They also said apparently he had a sort of fully formed adult jaw line and had lost the freshness of youth and all that. So they said, he's got grey hair. Well, the judge says, well, I'm sorry, I'm not accepting that as an excuse because I say that he's telling the truth. He is 15, but the stress of the journey from Afghanistan to Britain has made his hair go grey, and so he gets to stay. It's ridiculous.
But if you're working in the legal system and you want to be a lawyer, and you think, I feel motivated to help immigrants come here because I'm a moron from the liberal left. Then that's the sort of person who is going to become an immigration lawyer. And if you choose then the judges from within that tranche of lawyers to adjudicate upon immigration cases, you're going to get 45% staying. I'm surprised it's not 100. You know, given what we've seen. It's maniacal.
Yeah, but it also you know, the great panacea for all of this, for a lot of people who worry about the migrant crisis, is we've got to leave the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights. I would agree with that. But if you think that is the cure-all, I've got bad news for you. Because actually, all these paedophiles who come out of jail and we don't deport because they've got a right to a family life or they'll be persecuted back in their home country. You know, these judges, this is not the letter of the ECHR law, it's interpretation. These judges, these left-wing Guardian reader judges, they interpret it in that fashion. Therefore, therefore the pedos stay, the grey-haired guy is ruled to be 15 years old, and so on and so forth. Right. That's our problem. It's not so much the membership of the ECHR, it's the way our left-wing judges, immigration judges, interpret the ECHR.
Right. That's exactly right, and I've been saying the same thing for ages. I mean, along with the deeper problem in our judiciary, which is that it's been captured, you know, by the liberal left. I was looking at that hilarious dramatisation of Jeremy Thorpe's trial on television the other night, and it reminded me that back in the 70s the judiciary was very right wing. It was the voice of the establishment, and it was a right wing establishment, and it has changed. You know, it has changed 180 degrees. It's now the voice of liberalism, and it's preventing our government from doing what our government needs to do. You know, if I'm honest, I think Sir Keir Starmer probably would like to stop the migrants coming here. I don't think he's got a clue as to how to do it, and I don't think that any ideas he does put forward would be acceptable to his backbenches. But even if they were, we still have this army of lawyers.
You right there?
Yeah, I'm still here. I just coughed.
Yeah, I know that. I was waiting for the outcome. No, exactly. These lawyers are the problem. They will continue to be that. So we need to do something. As we discussed before, Rob, what I would do, I'd go to the American system where judges are essentially elected, where they have to worry about the views of the people. So if the people take a bad view of them, they lose their jobs. The trouble with our judges, no matter what rank they are, whether they're in the High Court, the Appeal Court, the Old Bailey or an immigration tribunal, we have no system whatsoever to even reprimand judges.
They're unsackable and they're untouchable, and that's a huge problem. And of course, the big difference is that we're using them more and more often. They more and more often come into conflict with the state, with the elected government, because we are becoming slowly a juristocracy, and that's been happening. You know, the number of lawyers in this country has increased exponentially over the last 25 years. I mean exponentially as well. It is that and psychotherapists. Those are the two things we now breed our people to do.
Yeah, exactly right. And there are so many lawyers that so many of them have had to give up the legal profession to become windbag MPs, making extremely long, incredibly dull speeches in the House of Commons, as opposed to making very dull speeches in the Old Bailey. So it's a difficult choice for them. Let's go to break, Rod, and when we come back, let's talk about Glasgow. So stick around.
President Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, on a state visit to America in the White House. He surprised, we're told, Donald Trump, who's blushing like a little bride. It was like a Southern belle when he discovered that Netanyahu has nominated him for a Nobel Peace Prize. Do you think that's a fair nomination?
I mean, it tells you how little a nomination makes. Any Pol Sci academic, any MP, anyone could nominate for it. If Matt Goodwin was still at a university, he could nominate you.
He is at a university.
But yeah, get somebody you like, and you can rival Donald Trump for the nomination.
I'm going to insist that I get a nomination.
So across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with prolific columnist Rod Liddle. Rod Liddle, let's talk about Glasgow. My quick observation is this. I see that Lisa Nandy, the Culture Secretary, was inquiring of the BBC. Even she's fed up with the BBC now. She was inquiring essentially of the Director General, Tim Davie. Why is it you never ever sack anyone? I mean, I would suggest, Tim, if you're listening, that you start with yourself. But as I predicted, and I'm sure you did too, after the Glasgow shambles, the debacle, deputy heads have indeed started to roll. The head of music, Lorna Clark, 215 grand a year. She's been asked to step back. And according to the BBC, a small number of other senior executives have been asked to step back. Lisa Nandy asking, well, why don't you ever fire anything for anyone? She's got a good point, hasn't she?
Yeah, she has got a good point. And I was impressed with Nandy for raising the issue because, I don't particularly object to Bob Villan and
Kneecap.
I'm pretty much the same as you. I believe in freedom of speech and that they should be able to say what they want. But of course, the BBC shouldn't be broadcasting it, and they shouldn't. But the problem I think the BBC has is that, and this is what I was doing in this piece, where I didn't call for Glastonbury to have a bomb dropped on it. I said what would happen if one was, which is something which has escaped the attention of the leader of Brighton Council, who's reported to Sussex Police.
I forgot. Have you heard from the police yet?
No. I would have thought. What I want to hear from the police is that they've arrested her for wasting police time. Yeah. This stupid cow, Bella Sankey, who clearly is incapable of reading, incapable of actually divining what is satire, but incapable of reading straightforward words such as, of course, we must not do this because it would be horrific and psychopathic.
You actually put that in. You actually had a sentence in, didn't you? I was going to ask you whether or not the subs told you to put that in.
Stupid woman.
Yeah.
But that's, if you live in Brighton, good luck to you. But no, the problem, I think, and what I was trying to get at in that article was that the BBC thinks that we're all Glasgow. That Glasgow brings us all together, much as did Jeff Hurst's hat trick and the Cenotaph and the Diamond Jubilee. It thinks we're all on board with this, and we're not. Okay, I enjoyed Neil Young and Biffy Clyro, but that's about it, frankly.
Yeah.
I would rather saw off my right leg than wallow around in the mud in Glastonbury, listening to all those idiots talking their political rubbish. We don't have any time for that. And if you're going to televise Glasgow, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get that stuff.
Yeah, I wonder what they'll do next time, because they have announced they're going to be a lot more careful about live music. Well, arguably, considering they show Glasgow from start to finish over 4 laboriously long days, there's a lot of risky moments in that, aren't there?
Yeah, what they need to do is just change tack. They ought to sort of, next summer, come live from a death metal venue instead of Glasgow, where the audience is a bit, where it's full of sort of feverish incel fascists and see if that brings the country together any better.
I'll tell you what the BBC would love to cover would be like a Roger Waters concert where he always spends 2 to 3 hours like lambasting Israel, to the extent that a lot of people believe that the old Pink Floyd Rock and Me border on anti-Semitism. We're going to be having a look at that story later on. Did you see that he, as soon as Palestine action were prescribed, he of course recorded a video and put out his passionate support of that activist group, and
yes.
Nothing's happened to him so far. So what's the point of prescribing an organisation if you're allowed to support it openly?
It's just window dressing. Almost everything this government does is window dressing. While the economy goes to hell and the migrants pour into the country, they're busy doing things which they hope will cheer the public up, but which don't. I mean, you know, God, even Dave Gilmour's had enough of Waters. Christ.
It was his wife, David Gilmour's wife, said that. This is just his wife saying. I think her name is Polly. She called Roger Waters the worst anti-Semite in the world.
I've known a couple who probably between me and you, Kev. You know.
Roger's up there though. Give him a break. Very quickly, Rod, because I was going to ask you about this. So, what do you think about the King's speech that he'll be giving right about now? I would have thought at the state banquet for the mystifying state visit of Emmanuel Macron. He's going to be announcing there are no borders between Britain and France. Why would he say something so ridiculous?
I thought he was parodying Labour's asylum seeker policies, which would suggest that he's right. But it's Charles again. When he's not lecturing us on the virtues of Islam and what a wonderful religion it is, or trying to force down our throats those dreadful chocolate box neo-Georgian houses he has a hankering for. He's talking about how there are no borders anywhere. You know, just get a grip, mate. I don't think anyone takes him seriously.
Well, certainly I don't. Do you think does he have speech writers, or does he write this garbage himself?
I suspect he will have speech writers, but I suspect he writes it himself. If only we had Princess Anne. Instead.
Exactly. So what my thought was, if he gets given this speech that somebody else has written, you know, I'm sure you're right, he'll go through, because he fancies himself as a wordsmith. No one knows why. But he'll go through the script. When he sees this sentence, there are no borders between Britain and France, do you think he just goes, yeah, that's great, love that? I mean, what goes on in his head?
Well, I don't think an awful lot, frankly. I don't think there's very much there. Isn't this a man who got 2 E's at A level or something? And, you know,
he's the worst qualified. They say he's the worst qualified student ever to get into Cambridge University.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, that's in common with most of the royal family, of course. You know, they're not the brightest sparks, are they? Not from Andrew, obviously.
He's in the clear. Did you see that? About
Yes.
With the Epstein files. So apparently his travel ban is now over. He can go over to America, apparently.
No, he'll be off to Dubai to play golf again.
Yeah.
That's
or do you think he'll go back to Pedo Island, see if there's any action still going on?
Any action there. Yeah. But they're not terribly bright. I mean, the one thing which keeps them afloat is the fact that, you know, Queen Elizabeth did a rather wonderful job for 70 years, and that the alternative is having someone like the lead singer of the 1975 as our president. You know, just
Did you see them at Glastonbury? What was that?
I cannot stand the band, so I turned off as soon as they came on.
He was trying to be sort of like rock and roll rebel, so he came on with a pint of Guinness and a cigarette, and then sort of start singing songs that make the Spice Girls songs look sophisticated. You know?
Yeah, no, they sound like warmed up Duran Duran. I can't bear them.
If only it was that good, Rod. What are you going to lead on in the Sun this week?
I don't know. I mean, the asylum thing. I mean, I took your I took your advice and led on one of your stories.
That the Warwick Council.
Yeah. She's in big trouble now.
Good. Let's keep the pressure up on her, yeah?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Have you seen her face, by the way? She looks like the kind of person who would act like this.
Yes, exactly. Yes, very, very pleased with herself.
Yeah.
Got that great broad smile.
Yeah, that's right. Aren't I wonderful? Look at my virtue. You can see me signalling it. I just hope she loses her £200,000 a year job and reflects on what she did.
So do I. And I also hope that the 18-year-old leader of
George Finch,
Warwickshire Council starts acting like an 18-year-old, orders free pizzas for everybody, gets the cider in.
Yes. Come on, council leader, act your age. Yeah, exactly right. Rod, always a pleasure to talk to you. Look forward to your various columns and your show on Sunday morning. That's Rod Liddle, as I say, Times Radio, Saturday morning, 10 until 1 p.m. Admittedly, he's up against my friend Alex Phillips here on Talk. Difficult choice. Listen to both of them. You can in catch up, whichever way you do it. In just a second, we're going to go to break now, and in just a second, Tim Montgomery will be in here to discuss some of the biggest stories of the day, so stick around.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, he's in the studio. He asked me to call him the Great Tim Montgomery. So it's the Great Tim Montgomery, former Tory, now Reform. Political commentator, it says here. Can you fit the bill?
I'll try.
Okay, let's see if we can do this. Well, listen, let's just talk about in my view, this strange state visit from Macron.
President Macron, if you don't mind.
President Macron and Brigitte.
He's quite conscious of his titles, like lots of grand people.
But I mean, what is it about? Why is it happening? And while you're on the topic, the King right now, I think, will probably be addressing the state banquet. And he's going to start his speech with the immortal words, "There are no borders between Britain and France." Well, the thing is, you Madge, there are. Well, the problem is we don't seem to want to observe them. Yes.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, lots of people in the media seem to think the visit of President Trump is more controversial than this one. Apparently this Macron fellow is our friend and he will give a predictable visit. The visit shouldn't even be happening yet. We have people, 2,500 people crossed the channel last week, illegal migrants. The visit shouldn't even be happening until France has stopped the boats properly, or at least, we saw that sort of very well-timed footage last week of French police using bayonets finally to poke, these...
Okay, if I could just introduce a caveat there. One, very convenient
timing
that a BBC film crew and reporter were on hand to witness that epoch-making event when they finally sort of punctured a dinghy while it was in the sea. But we should note that subsequent to that, the French announced we won't be doing that again.
It's pathetic.
The reason they say the only reason they punctured that boat was they feared it was not seaworthy. Well, it certainly wasn't after they punctured it. No. So that was for the cameras. That was a stunt.
You stole my thunder, Kevin. I was about to make that.
Okay, sorry.
No, I'll be quiet now. I'll let you.
Sorry.
But the thing is, it's all theatre. It was done before the visit, and we know that they aren't really serious about stopping the boats. And Macron should not have been invited for a visit where he's being honoured unless he was going to deliver goods for us. He's an outgoing president of France anyway. He can't be re-elected. Why are we building up a long-term relationship with him when he's only got a short term left in power? He's hated in France, by the way. He's hated in France almost as much as Starmer is hated in Britain. He's basically a worn-out president.
And they've done nothing for the £771 million we've given them to patrol their beaches properly, because they don't patrol their beaches properly. They just wave goodbye to the migrants. So once again, we are paying homage to a man. I'm not sure if he was around 12. It's over 12 years. Was he around 12 years ago? Probably.
But the presidential terms are 5 years, aren't they? So I think he's done 7 or 8 years.
Okay, well, anyway, France over 12 years has received from us £771 million. He personally received from Rishi Sunak, I believe it was the best part of £500 million. So he's taken the majority of this money and done the square root of sod all for it. Which is why I would suggest we should not be treating him to a state visit.
Yeah. And this Keir Starmer has had multiple opportunities to address this. We had the deal with the EU, just a couple of months ago. There shouldn't have been that deal. We shouldn't have given away, British fishing rights, etc., unless France was going to pay proper respect to Britain and stop the boats. But now we've given them a state visit. We do it always the wrong way around. Why are we becoming a soft touch on all these issues? Drives me mad.
What will be achieved by this state visit? Anything at all? I mean, for some countries, certainly with someone like Trump, but other countries as well, they're good for trade. They bring some kind of relationship together, and diplomats from both countries get together, and things can be achieved. But this with France, I mean, we don't need a state visit. What's this all about?
Well, there's enormous controversy attached to the Trump visit, and I understand that in some ways. But Trump has at least given us a proper trade deal. Yeah. He's given us, Trump loves this country in a way I'm not sure that Macron loves this country. So I wonder if, to answer your question directly, Kevin, well, it's partly about assuaging Buckingham Palace. I wonder if Buckingham Palace are much happier to have a visit from Macron than they are from Trump, and some of the people in Labour's own parliamentary party. And
we're going to have Sarah Pochin's coming on after 8 p.m. I'm going to ask her about this, but Macron, while he's here, 3 days he's going to be here, he's going to see, obviously, Starmer, but also Kemi Badenoch, and also Ed Davey. But not Nigel Farage.
Well,
and Nigel Farage is a bit upset about that, and I don't blame him. I mean, if you were going to actually make an effort to make this visit politically meaningful, Farage is arguably the most important person you should sit down.
Probably the next Prime Minister.
Yeah, he's playing politics again, isn't he?
Macron is not... If you're on a state visit to Britain, you honour all of Britain. That's the basic nature of it. You don't take the parts of Britain that you like. We are honouring France with this visit as well as the president. This is about two nations. It's our king meeting their president. But the president is not acting like a head of state. He's acting like a head of a political party. Yeah. He's meeting the people he wants to while he's there. It's very disrespectful, actually.
And he sees Nigel Farage as Mr. Le Pen, doesn't he? The British Le Pen.
Absolutely. And so... There'll be consequences domestically for this. The French people will note as well that, yet again, their president cannot resist playing politics. And that's been one of the reasons why he's so unpopular in France. He's always picking partisan fights.
And still pursuing this kind of EU-style left-of-centre liberal dream, which he and Starmer and various other EU leaders are refusing to accept. Is fading out, is dying. They're clinging to a dying beast. And this behaviour towards Nigel Farage is indicative of that.
Yeah. And lots of people say, that Britain has suffered economically since we left the European Union. Just a little comparison, Kevin, I don't know whether you know this. Do you know which country has grown faster since we left the European Union? France or Britain?
Us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the last time I looked, France was still in the European Union.
Yeah, I believe it is. Yeah. It's quite a leading light, I'm led to believe. Let's go to break, and when we come back, we need to talk about the one-in, one-out system that is, I think, rather confusing. That next. Stay tuned, folks.
Well, Bridget Phillipson was asked a direct question yesterday and refused to give a direct answer. So it seems that the DfE may have moved that on a little bit yesterday. If she just said yesterday, we're not going to take these away from children who've got them, then everyone would know where they stood. You wouldn't have had front pages warning of revolts from Labour MPs again. Maybe that's what's got them worried and rushed out the statement. But it's not really a good way to govern, particularly when we're talking about vulnerable children and their families who often have to battle a lot to get these plans in place.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're talking about Macron, President Macron, Emmanuel Macron's state visit. He turned up today at Northolt Airport with Brigitte, Madame Macron, and there was the characteristic display of a lack of affection as they got off the plane.
Well, there wasn't any sort of...
They didn't have a punch-up this time, so things are improving. The relationship is obviously getting warmer. No fisticuffs, but he went apparently as they were coming off the plane down the stairs, he went to sort of hold her hand, and she went, sort of swung away.
It's a very
all
odd...
is not well with that.
It's a very odd relationship, isn't it?
Yeah, really I think so. I think so.
It makes the France-British relationship looked like it was a holy matrimony of the highest order.
Somebody said to me, "Oh, is the state visit? Is Brigitte Macron coming?" I said, "Of course she is. That's what these state visits are for. They're for the wives, and of course the husbands. But you know what I mean. I think the women enjoy these things more than the men."
Camilla looked magnificent today. Did you see her in her green dress?
Did you?
I'm a big fan of Camilla, actually. I know there's controversy over the history, etc., but I think she makes the king happy.
She certainly does,
Yeah.
and I think comes across. I mean, I'm not a sort of massive royal enthusiast, but she comes across as a what's the word? A really kind of friendly presence.
Yeah, no, she always got a glass of red in her hand.
A warm
sort of
and
receptions.
Also, she's got fantastic, huge, posh woman's hair, hasn't she? Massive.
My three favourite royals actually were all women: Catherine, Anne, and Camilla.
Gotta love Anne. And of course,
I'm going off subject, aren't I?
No, my favourite royal is Prince Andrew. What's not to like?
You know we're live on radio.
That's a joke, folks. What's to like more than the point?
You are so bad.
Right, let's seriously. Now, the backdrop to this visit is, of course, Starmer's latest desperate plan, which is this one in, one out. Basically, his plan now, having inherently admitted that the smash the gangs strategy is a total disaster. If it was a success, why would he be scrabbling around looking for other solutions? Yeah. So he's now saying, look, we'll give you an illegal migrant, and we'll take in return for you can give us a legal migrant. Yeah. So in other words, his solution is, France and Britain playing swap the foreigner. Mm-hmm. Only theirs will be legal, ours will be illegal. Well, there's a couple of problems here. First of all, the European Commission, backed by Italy, Spain, Greece, Malta and Cyprus, they've written to the European Commission to object, and the European Commission has indicated, yes, they don't believe that France can do a unilateral deal with Britain about this. Britain would have to do a deal with the EU, not France. So there are technical problems. But also...
So again, it's why didn't we sort this out when we did our EU deal 2 months ago, rather than waiting to find this out now?
Because it's
just incompetence, sheer incompetence.
It's just desperation. It's just grabbing at straws. And so how would this work? Look, on the off chance it even ever gets off the ground, which I don't see. I don't see it ever happening. In what way? How would that solve the migrant crisis? Our migrant crisis is numerical. Yeah. So if you're swapping one for one, in fact, the chances are, they say, that the ones that we get back from France probably will have family in tow.
So there'll be more of them over time.
So numerically, we're going to lose out. But even like for like, one in, one out, that doesn't solve the crisis, does it? That means we have the same number of foreign migrants here.
Well, I'd say probably more. One, because you've just suggested, the migrants that France will sending us will have family. So at the beginning, the early stages, it'll look like we're just getting the men or the women, then their children and their relatives will follow, which inevitably happens. And also, I'm completely unconvinced, what's going to happen to the ones we send back? Are France going to lock them up in some sort of prison or reservation? Or will they be back on the beaches, within a month or a week or a day, coming back over?
It's a really good point. It's a really good point, because the ones that we are supposed to accept will ostensibly be legal.
Yeah. Their situation will be sorted. Yeah. The ones we send back to France, their situation will not be sorted. It won't be resolved for them, those migrants we send back. They'll want to come back to Britain.
But I think probably the most significant factor that means this is a non-starter is the fact that these 5 countries, Italy, Spain, Greece, Malta and Cyprus, all on the kind of front line of the Mediterranean migrant crisis, have written to the EC, the European Commission, to say, well, we don't believe that France can do a unilateral deal like this, and it looks as if the European Commission has agreed to that. But if you think about it, the fact that Starmer is kind of frantically chasing this deal, this agreement, he is inherently admitting that the £400 million that he's thrown at the Smash the Gangs Border Security Command has been a total waste of money. He is inherently admitting that his last plan, the one he came up with a year ago, Smash the Gangs Border Security Command, hasn't worked.
No. Well, I would be perhaps a little bit kinder towards him than you, Kevin, on this occasion, and say that there probably isn't one single policy that's going to solve this problem. You may need multiple policies. But what I think we do need to say is that the numbers since he launched Smash the Gangs are up. So if it is making any contribution at all, and I don't think it is making any significant contribution, the overall effect is that compared to Sunak's time in office, which Starmer heavily criticised, more people are illegally breaking into our country across the English Channel than before Starmer was elected. And why wouldn't they? They look at Starmer and they see a weak Prime Minister. They see an incompetent Prime Minister. They're not stupid. They know that basically Labour is the party of immigration.
Yeah, and last week alone, 2,599. That
2,000.
That adds up. And that wasn't every day, by the way. They didn't. I don't think there were any on Saturday. None on Sunday either. So 2,599. We worked it out. That adds up to around about £140 million cost to British taxpayers over the next 12 months, over the next year, because each one of them costs £40,000 a year. So in 1 week alone, £140 million worth of expenditure right there on those small boats, and all he's ever been saying is smash the gangs, which is now becoming a sick joke. He should stop punishing himself by saying it.
I'll tell you who's the most sick joke too. There'll be people watching this programme now with all sorts of issues, but just for one issue currently in the news, children with special needs in school. Their parents are currently being told we can't afford to look after your special needs child anymore. But what they see on the news is that more and more migrants are coming over and put in hotels. And that's what's driving the British people mad, is that they're seeing migrants given all the help that they need, and their own children are being denied special needs education, or their own, fathers and mothers and grandfathers are being denied, basic pension benefits. It's like we care more about people coming into our country from overseas than we think about people already here. That's what drives the British people mad. The British people are fair-minded people, but when their sense of fairness is offended, as this policy offends them, they're angry, and justifiably so.
They talk about, there's no one simple solution to this migrant crisis. I mean, I know it's... I just sort of reject the concept that it's that complicated. I mean, if somehow or other we did manage to start turning them round, the boats in the middle of the channel, that would be a pretty simple way of solving this crisis. Once the message gets out, you don't get across the channel, they'd stop coming. Another, shall we say, rather less dramatic way of sending a serious message to these migrants, in my view, I just discussed this with Rod Liddell. Why don't we stop giving them legal aid? Yeah. So when they get here, you say, all right, you say you're an asylum seeker. OK, you want to fight your case to stay? I hope you've got lots of money, because we're not paying for it. Well, I mean, that is...
Put them in tents. Yeah, I've got nothing against putting them in tents.
But the maddest...
Why in hotels?
The maddest thing, though, is of all the gifts we give them, 4-star hotels, we give them £50 a week benefits, free food, free doctors, free dentists, and then the maddest thing, and plus all the presents.
And wigs, we learned last week.
Wigs, trampoline lessons, driving lessons, trips to the zoo, cricket trips, you name it. But the maddest thing we give them is free lawyers to fight their case to stay. That's just insane, isn't it?
It's almost as if the people behind that policy are the lawyers.
Well, this is what we start...
There's a lot of people in Britain. Most British people lose from this policy. Let's be absolutely clear. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Yeah. But there are quite a few powerful vested interests in Britain who do make a lot of money out of the migrants coming into our country. And one of those vested interests that makes a lot are the lawyers. So if you ask the question, why do we not scrap legal aid for these people? well, there'll be a lot of lawyers who'd lose a lot of money if we did.
And, Parliament, from the top to the bottom, is always predisposed to be nice to lawyers, to come up with solutions that involve lawyers, because most of those idiots in the Commons are lawyers as well. We just started the show, actually, with Rod Liddle. You'd be interested to get your take on it, apropos of what we're just discussing. Hitherto, this country has been given £47 million a year to immigration lawyers to fight cases to keep asylum seekers in the country. Labour's solution is, well, what we need to do is give these people more money.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
you
that's
shocked me.
So that's gone up to that's gone up to £61 million. So they've given an extra £14 million to immigration lawyers. Sarah Sackman, who's the Justice Minister. I know, me neither. This is what she said. This sums it up. It's unbelievable. I just read this to Rod. This is the extra money to lawyers. This will help us support the immigration system. In immigration, the new government is serious and ambitious about ending hotel use and increasing returns. This can only be done with the help of legal professionals, which is why supporting the capacity of that sector is crucial. So there you go, a way the government's come up with to give immigration lawyers more money to fight the cases for asylum seekers to stay. Again, how do you think that might solve the migrant crisis, Tim?
Well, it's not going to. There's a word I would like to use at this point, Kevin, but it's a family programme, and I'm going to restrain myself.
Yeah. We should have, do you know what we should have in this show? We should have a 1 minute every hour where we're excused family viewing consideration.
An X-rated.
I think the audience would like it.
There could be a sort of little red button that you press if you want the X-rated version of the Kevin.
Well, exactly right.
Show.
Well, which is what happens in every ad break, mate. We get these WhatsApp voice notes from our audience, and they're all great, but. A great many of them are not really broadcastable.
Some are quite fruity, I imagine.
Yeah. Their names for Keir Starmer are imaginative, put it that way. Tim, always a pleasure to have you on board. Come back again next week. That's Tim Montgomery, reform luminary, political commentator, here every Tuesday, and any other time I can get him here. So when we come back, it's Sarah Pochin from Reform UK. We have a number of issues to discuss. Stick around, folks.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Very pleased to say that, well, by the way, we're taking your calls in about half an hour. 03444991000. Get on the phone. It's good to talk on Talk. But I'm very pleased to say for the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to be joined by the excellent Reform UK MP for Runcorn, Sarah Pochin. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi, Kevin. Good evening. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Can I kick off and ask you why you think... There's a number of things I want to talk about this state visit by Monsieur Macron, the French state visit. Why do you think we're affording this man, or this country, if you like, the honour of a state visit, considering they've taken off us over the last few years £771 million, allegedly to patrol their beaches properly and stop the migrants getting onto boats, stop the boats? We know they just haven't done that. Why are we affording this guy this honour when he has reneged, it seems to me, on our deal with him for the French police to patrol their beaches properly, which they clearly don't do?
I have absolutely no idea, Kevin. Name me one single taxpayer that would be happy that their hard-earned taxpayers' money is being spent on the state visit for somebody who's taken, like you say, 800 million since 2014 of our hard-earned taxpayers' money to do absolutely nothing other than wave these migrants on across their beaches over to England. Off you go on these boats. And I couldn't believe the timely little scam that was set up, wasn't it, this week with the police, the French gendarmes or whoever they are. They slashed a boat. Well, oh, what a surprise! There was the BBC film.
That was a hell of a coincidence. That was a hell of a coincidence, wasn't it?
Just before Macron gets here. Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous. And as I keep saying, the British people are not stupid. That was a setup, for goodness sake. I don't think we've ever seen the French gendarmes or the police or whatever they're called in the water, have we? And here we are with a BBC film crew and they're slashing the boats. Well, funny that when Macron arrives, I was delayed walking into the Houses of Parliament today. Do you know why I had to wait for Macron to arrive? Well, how happy do you think that made me feel?
Not happy, I would have thought. What do you think about this? I'm really keen to get your comments on this. I think this is a disgrace. While he's here for 3 days, Macron, with Brigitte, he will be meeting, of course, Keir Starmer, leader of the Labour Party, also Kemi Badenoch, leader of the Tory Party, and of all people, also Ed Davey, that water sports fan who's the leader of the Lib Dem Party, but he won't be meeting Nigel Farage. That strikes me as not only a snub, but also a very unwise thing to do. Reform UK are the big party on the rise. They are polling better than any other party in this country. And also, Nigel and yourself, your party, has some very well-laid, fully formed plans about what to do about the migrant crisis. You would think that the President of France might be interested to talk to Mr. Farage about this, but no, he's not on the agenda. What's that about?
Well, we know what it's about, don't we, Kevin? You know, Macron is on his way out and Nigel Farage is on his way in. And there's no way that those two, Macron wants to spend time speaking with somebody who will tell him straight, tell him that we want our money back, or at least tell him he's not getting another penny if Reform get into power, and also telling him that Reform are the only political party that will stand up to this migrant crisis, to this national emergency, which is what we should be calling it, that is bankrupting our country, and we will not let them on to our shores. So you know why he won't meet Nigel, because Nigel will tell him as it is. It's not good enough. The French have been an absolute disgrace. They keep all the fish and they give us all the migrants.
You're damn straight about that. The gendarmes just stand there and watch the migrants leave, and they continue to do so. And actually, Sarah, after that rather theatrical display with the BBC film crew handily placed to record it lovingly, where they actually finally punctured a dinghy, they then announced that there'd be no chance of them ever doing that again. They actually made a point of saying, well, the reason we sank that dinghy was we feared it wasn't seaworthy. So they're not going to do this again. They're almost admitting it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see them doing what we've been paying them hundreds of millions of pounds to do. Once they've done it, ever. It's a disgrace, isn't it?
And that's what I say. The British people aren't stupid, you know, and we're laughing because if you don't laugh, you'd cry about this situation. The fact is how many more are going to be let in over the next 4 years? We've got over 4 years of this government left. I doubt Keir Starmer will last that long, but sadly, we will have a Labour government for that long. We're on to, 800 a day coming in. I mean, 20,000, I think it is, that we know about since this Labour government have been in power. These figures are ridiculous. As I say, it's a national emergency. The British people want action. Why is it we have one of the smallest borders and yet we cannot police it? Why is it this government will not enact border force to turn these boats around? Why is it that if any illegal immigrant gets onto our beaches, they're not scooped up, put into a deportation centre and sent home? I don't know what the problem is. It's not that hard. Other countries have done it. I'll tell you what it is. There's no will in this government. There was no will in the Tory government. But I'll tell you who has got the will. It's reform.
Exactly right. I keep hearing all these liberals saying, and I mean that with a small L, all going, it's a very complex, it's very complicated. There's no one move you can make to solve this migrant crisis. I think there's a number of single moves that might work. First of all, turn the boats around. Secondly, maybe bring in a total policy of detain and deport. You don't get into this country if you've broken in illegally. And thirdly, I'm rather keen on this one. Why do we give these people legal aid? Why do we pay for their cases, their lawyers, their expensive lawyers, to fight long cases for these people to remain in the country? What I think we should say to these migrants, if it comes to this, all right, well, you're here, you've claimed asylum, and you want to fight your case to stay. How are you going to pay for it? Have you got money? Because we're not paying for it. I mean, that is, of all the stuff we give these people, free hotels, 15 quid a week, 50 quid a week, doctors, dentists, phones, driving lessons, trampoline lessons, you name it. The maddest thing I think we give them is legal aid. We pay for single individuals, we'll often pay hundreds of thousands of pounds over the years to fight their long cases to stay. That is just insane, it seems to me.
It's absolutely ridiculous, and the British taxpayer, why on earth? We're distraught as taxpayers, aren't we? We know the high income earners are leaving the country now, which is a disaster because there's not going to be any tax coming in. And what are we left with? We're left with a bankrupt country because we're paying for these illegal immigrants. But in terms of the legal aid, there should be, and I've said this very clearly. Oh, and I said it last week, and suddenly Kemi's writing about it in the papers. The fact is, I said, no benefits to anybody that comes into this country illegally. No benefits whatsoever. You get here, you're turned around, you go home. But we've got to stop this industry, Kevin, that has grown up, that has expanded now, of left-wing woke lawyers that we, again, the taxpayers, are paying because it's legal aid. And do you know what, Kevin? you can appeal and appeal and appeal. There is no end to that circular process. So these people stay for years and then get lost in the system because of our soft judicial system as well as our soft benefit system. There should be no legal aid, no benefits at all to anyone foreign coming into this country for at least 5 years. And that's the ones that come in legally as well, that have something to offer this country. We need to get tough. The British people have had enough. And if we don't get tough, Kevin, we are going to be overrun by foreigners with their bringing their own culture in. And not only that, utterly bankrupt as a country.
I think I was just talking to Rod Little earlier in the show, and I don't know the veracity of this, but he's a well-read, well-informed man, and he says that we're the only country in the world that gives migrants legal aid. The only country in the world. I think every other country would say, hang on a second, what are we talking about here? We're talking about foreigners who illegally break into our country, and then we give them hundreds of thousands of pounds to fight their case to stay. Every other country on the face of the earth go, no, 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 that's insane. Here in Britain we go, great idea, let's do it. It's mad, absolutely mad.
And that's whilst we're housing them, feeding them, clothing them, and actually say, even teaching them to drive. I mean, we are an absolute laughing stock. And this government should be ashamed of itself, but actually so should the last. And you know what, going back to Macron and who he's seeing, you know, how short-sighted that the French delegation are not seeing reform, because very short-sighted, because reform will be the next government of this country. But of course we won't forget that, will we?
No, you won't. And if you keep promising the people of this country, we will solve this migrant crisis. We will stop the invasion of these foreigners. It's going to be a very compelling electoral ploy, I'll tell you that. Let's talk about one of the ramifications, or some of the ramifications, of what happens when you keep letting in foreigners, not just illegally, but also legally. Don't forget, I would argue that probably our legal migrant crisis is more worrying than the illegal, given that we let sometimes 1 million people in for no apparent reason legally. Now, this has resulted up around your part of the world, up in the north, quite a few towns and cities becoming fairly unrecognisable in terms of traditional Britishness. These look like foreign cities these days, Muslim cities to be honest. Now, a story cropped up at the weekend in the Sunday Telegraph. Sure you noticed it. It was a Muslim matchmaking site, dating site for men, Muslim men, offering virgin Muslim brides, with the caveat that if you got one under the age of 30, that would be like the top whack. But if a woman wanted to be on this site and she's over 30 and she's a Muslim, she has to expect she could only be maybe the second or the third wife, you know, because she's old goods. You see, they literally use the word product. Old product. Now, in this video, to advertise this vile dating service, if you like, not really a dating service, it's just a sort of recruitment service for wives for Muslim men. It contained instructions on how to beat your wife. One guy very generously saying, well, you don't actually beat them with a baseball bat or anything like that. You just sort of hit them. Then a doctor crops up, an alleged doctor. He's the medic of the video, to say, well, of course, I'm medically qualified. I can tell you, of course, that women are intellectually inferior to men, and so on and so forth. Now, it's that kind of cultural invasion that we should be very, very careful about. And what I'd like to say about this website is I would suggest that misogynistic instructions on how to beat your wife must be against the law. Why don't we pursue this dating site?
Do you know what, Kevin? I raised this question today in the Houses of Parliament. So in the justice questions, I stood up and I asked the Secretary of State for Justice whether or not she, as a Muslim woman, would agree with me that this website, I called it the Halal Bride website, was utterly unacceptable in this country, that there was no place for this stuff in Britain. And you know what? She would not. She would not agree.
Didn't
that
agree
this was
with
not
you.
Acceptable.
Didn't agree
No.
with you.
No. Do you know what she told me? So she's telling the nation, because this is in the Houses of Parliament, in questions to the Justice Secretary. She told me that it wasn't anything to do with her. It was to do with website controllers and laws or whatever. And therefore, it was a question for the Home Office. How absolutely disgraceful. She should be ashamed of herself. Yet again, the Labour government refusing to answer a question that I put to them. I've asked 6 questions in 9 weeks, and they've not answered any of them.
Well, how can we forget?
This was a disgrace.
How can we forget your debut question about burqas, where the Prime Minister just sort of, I won't be following her down that line. I mean, how about answering the damn question? By the way, what I was saying earlier about this disgusting Muslim matchmaking site, it says that women under 35 are promoted as ideal first wives. Those older are likened to, and this is a quote, low quality products.
Low quality product. I obviously saw that myself. This is sickening stuff, and it's invading our culture, and this should be absolutely banned. I asked our own Secretary of State for Justice, a Muslim woman, if she would stop this, and she refused to agree that she would stop this. These are the people that are running this country, Kevin. What does this say about the misogynistic culture that is creeping into this country? We have to stop it. And you're absolutely right. This is coming from people established here as British Muslims. They're established here as legal immigrants. Now, how frightening is that? Because what do we do about that? Well, I'll tell you what we do about it. And by the way, do we think there's any Sharia courts in operation? I bet there are.
Yeah, I bet so.
This is an insidious problem. Our prisons are being overrun now by Islamic extremists. We only heard, didn't we, in recent days that defendants are being released with the ability to make bombs. Oh my goodness, this is a frightening situation. And I get accused of stirring up race hatred and all this nonsense. No, I'm saying it as it is. Do not be in denial over this issue. This is a big issue, and we need to start tackling it. And stuff like this website should be absolutely banned, and the perpetrators behind this website should be in jail.
Yeah, probably, as I say, instructions on how to beat your wife. If that's not illegal, it damn well should be. In fact, it is illegal. So I think this website should be pursued. The people involved in it should be pursued. Can I ask you a last question, Sarah? Great to talk to you as always. Basically on the same kind of topic. It is Angela Rayner's increasing campaign plan to bring in an official legal definition of Islamophobia. The Policy Exchange think tank has today come up with a report which says, of course, it's a huge threat to freedom of speech that would hand, they say, and I'm quoting here, a significant new weapon to a Muslim group that's devoted to shaping media reporting of the religion. That's an outfit called the Centre for Media Monitoring. And what they do, I know from personal experience, they constantly complain about anything that the press say, that I say, or newspapers say about Muslims that you might interpret as derogatory. So they're very, very vigilant. The Policy Exchange saying that that Angela Rayner's plan to bring in this definition of Islamophobia will be a threat to freedom of speech, in that, if it comes in, don't forget she's got a big working group, got a massive great working group working on this, led by the dreaded Dominic Greaves, so I can't say worse than that. if it comes in, we'll be able to, you and I, or citizens of this country, we'll be able to laugh at Christians, take the mickey out of Buddhists, criticise Hindus, really lay into, say whatever we like about all the other religions. But if you criticise or make fun of Islam, you're off to jail. Why are they getting special treatment like this? And why would any religion in a free country get this special treatment? And we know it's because Labour are obsessed with the Muslim vote. But this is sinister and this is wrong, isn't it?
Well, it is sinister and it is wrong. And just frame it this way, Kevin. If this type of stuff becomes law, you and I will not be having this conversation, because if we do, we'll be in jail. But I'll tell you what, I will always carry on having this conversation. I'm not afraid of this stuff, and somebody has to stand up against what people like Angela Rayner are bringing into this country, because this is two-tier justice. Why should the Muslim element of our society be treated any differently to anybody else?
Absolutely. Exactly.
And that's the basis of justice. And as a magistrate of 20 years, that was the whole foundation of justice. It doesn't matter what your faith is, or what your sex is, you are treated the same. And if we take that away, which we are taking away with two-tier justice now in every element, I would just look, I've got two constituents at the moment. I've got my very own two Lucy Connollys, if you like. I saw one last Friday, I'm seeing another this Friday. 30 months for just either side of 30 months they got for not even anything like as insightful as what Lucy Connolly put down. Straight off to prison, no bail, didn't see their families. Absolute disgrace what's going on. And yet, there's reluctance to sort out the Manchester bombing stuff. There's not the Manchester bombings, I beg your pardon, the Manchester attacks, yes. The Muslim attacks on the police at the airport. How long has that taken to be brought to justice? And yet these guys were whisked off within 3 days. Yeah. They found themselves in prison. This is two-tier justice. And the other thing that Angela Rayner she's clearly obsessed with dictating what we talk about, because apparently now there's a rule coming in, isn't there, where you can't have a chat at the coffee machine about anything.
Oh, banter.
Because there's going to be spies now. There's going to be spies in the workplace.
In case you say anything that might be offensive to any of your colleagues, I'll tell you one thing, Sarah. If that comes into play, I'm in big trouble. I really am.
Same,
I really
same.
Sarah, excellent to talk to you. Come on again soon. That's the brilliant Sarah Poshin, Reform UK's new MP for Runcorn. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Roger Waters from Pink Floyd, formerly of Pink Floyd, who has essentially completely broken, or looks to have broken the law by supporting Palestine action, which the government prescribed earlier this week, or towards the end of last week. So he has immediately expressed in video his support for Palestine action. That allegedly is against the law, so we need to talk about that afterwards. Stick around.
That makes me so livid I could cry. That disgusting human being who happens to be the Mayor of London, who also happens to hold the title of the Police and Crime Commissioner as part of that role, that responsibility, obfuscating, gaslighting, bullying, belittling. These are little girls, underage minors, being raped by gangs in our capital city. You do not play games over this.
Well, Bridget Phillipson was asked a direct question yesterday and refused to give a direct answer. So it seems that the DfE may have moved that on a little bit yesterday. If she just said yesterday, we're not going to take these away from children who've got them, then everyone would know where they stood. You wouldn't have had front pages warning of revolts from Labour MPs again. Maybe that's what's got them worried and rushed out the statement. But it's not really a good way to govern, particularly when we're talking about vulnerable children and their families who often have to battle a lot to get these plans in place.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, what we're going to do now, we're going to talk about Roger Waters, you know, that 81-year-old guy who used to be in Pink Floyd, a colossus of the rock scene, has a very successful solo career, tours the world, but he's rather obsessive in his dislike of Israel, to say the least, to the extent that he is regularly accused of being a kind of rather devout anti-Semite. He, of course, denies that, but a lot of people take his denials with a pinch of salt. Anyway, as you know, towards the end of last week, the government set in motion the proscribing of Palestine Action, that activist group that broke into Bryce Norton and caused £30 million worth of damage to 2 RAF jets. They say peaceful protest. Others would say that's almost an act of treason. Anyway, the point is the government decided on the back of that, look, this organisation is now proscribed. It is a proscribed terrorist organisation. And just like Hezbollah or Hamas, as such, you can't go around saying, I love Hamas, I support Hezbollah, here's a flag, you know, or I love Palestine Action. If you say I support Palestine Action now, as some people found out over the weekend, that is against the law. Well, look, before we're going to play the video in just a second that Roger Waters has made, but before we do play that, let me welcome to the show, very pleased to have him here, is the Chief Executive of the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, or for Gideon Falter. Hello, Gideon.
Hi, good evening.
Thanks for joining us. Well, let's just play a little bit of this offending video.
I support Palestine Action. It's a great organisation. They are non-violent. They are absolutely not terrorist in any way. They are a non-violent protest organisation protesting the presence in the UK of Elbit Systems, who are an Israeli arms manufacturing.
Well, Gideon, the thing is, you know, he goes on, he says, this is Independence Day, July the 5th, 2025. I declare my independence from the government of the UK, which has just designated Palestine Action a proscribed terrorist organisation. For the record, I support Palestine Action. It's a great organisation. They are non-violent. They are absolutely non-terrorist in any way. I support Palestine Action, and I always will, because that is the right thing to do. We will not be rolled over by this appalling Labour government. Now, look, the point is, whatever you think about all of this, that surely must be against the law. After Palestine Action was proscribed, you can't go round voicing your support for them publicly. Now, what I would ask you is, this was on July the 5th, I think the day after the organisation was prescribed. So what I would ask you is, why haven't the police arrested him? Why hasn't anyone spoken to him?
Well, good question. Section 12 of the Terrorism Act 2000 says that if you support or express support for a terrorist organisation, a prescribed organisation, you commit a criminal offence. It's as simple as that. And in ordinary situations with ordinary people, if you express support for a terrorist organisation, you're arrested. In fact, that same day, the Met arrested, I think, 29 people for expressing support for Palestine action. And like you say, this is not some kind of, sort of blessed order of St. Mary the Meek group of protesters. This is a group that has an online manual that they call the Underground Manual. It teaches people how to get burner cell phones, how to cause maximum damage with a sledgehammer. They've gone around absolutely wrecking all sorts of premises, including premises belonging to people in the Jewish community. And then, of course, the thing that really got the nation's attention was when they decided to go into Brize Norton and wreck a couple of aircraft that were sitting there on the RAF base. So in ordinary situations, we would expect anybody expressing support for a terrorist organisation to be immediately dealt with by the police.
In the absence of that, in the absence of any sign of any activity by the authorities, by the police, so far in response to this, your organisation, the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism, says that if nothing is done, that you will launch a private prosecution. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, we campaign very hard for Palestine Action to be proscribed as a terrorist organisation. I should add that we were doing that before they went and took their activities to RAF Brize Norton. They'd been terrorising the Jewish community and all sorts of businesses up and down the country and premises for a long time. But Roger Waters has made a statement. He's made it very clearly. And what we've said to the authorities is, look, if you're investigating this, if you're planning to take action, then by all means you have our support. If, on the other hand, we believe that an offence is made out and you're not planning to prosecute it, we will use the power of private prosecution to bring offenders to justice.
Any response so far from the police? I mean, as I say, it seems to me, I mean, there was obviously a pro-Palestine action sort of demonstration over the weekend, and a fair few people were arrested, including, surprisingly, an 83-year-old former C of E vicar, a woman apparently. So there was action there. These people were arrested. I'm not sure if anyone's been charged, but I guess they should be. But have you had any indication from the police or any response to your threat to launch a private prosecution?
No, I mean, look, in general, we have been appalled by double standards applied by the police on the issue of anti-Semitism, extremism. But in this particular situation, it might be that they are actually at work. It might be, for example, that Roger Waters is not in the UK right now. Of course, the offences under the Terrorism Act, most of them actually apply worldwide, including this one. So it doesn't matter whether you're in the UK or not. If you express support for Palestine action, then you've committed a criminal offence in the UK following the prescription of that group. So it might be that the wheels of justice are turning, and that's why we're in touch with the authorities, because we want to make sure that they have an opportunity to enforce the law. If they don't, then of course we stand ready to privately prosecute anybody who's committed an offence. And
he in this video he went on to say, this is reference to what happened at Glastonbury, good on you, Bob Vylan, and the rest of you who are standing up to be counted. I love you. So he loves the Bob Vylan band, who chanted death, death to the IDF, which was a flat-out anti-Semitic statement. Now, given Roger Waters' history, I know this is a difficult area, but I've done lots of stories on Roger Waters. I've seen documentaries on him. Do you think he's an anti-Semite?
You know, he's got a really long history, hasn't he? And if you look at what Bob Villan was saying, it wasn't just the death, death to the IDF chant. He was also shouting things like that he'd had to work for effing Zionists. In previous concerts, they've called for MPs and police officers to be killed. So that's apparently something which has won Roger Waters' support. But if you look back at Roger Waters' history, we actually made a documentary ourselves with John Ware. And we spoke to people who'd worked with Roger Waters in the past. We actually got access to emails. So there was one email where if you know Roger Waters' concerts, he floats a great big inflatable pig at his concerts. And there's an email from Roger himself in which he says that he wants the word effing and then the K word for Jews, an extremely offensive word for Jews, put across the middle of this pig. And his production crew then say, no, let's not do that. There was another band member who recounted when Roger Waters started doing this horrible mocking sort of impression of his deceased in the Holocaust grandmother. There was another person, a producer, who recalled Roger Waters. He said had sung a ditty which ended because, and then the name of a person is an effing Jew. You know, he's somebody who I think has a really long history. Making this video, no one said to Roger Waters, Roger, you know, you're on camera, and he sort of didn't get a chance to get his act together, and the words "I support Palestine Action" just suddenly slipped out. He decided to make that video. He's really gone out of his way. He's made a little sign to go along with the video. And that is something which is very, very serious. And as we say, if the authorities don't take action, then our intention in all situations where they don't take action is to make sure that the law is enforced ourselves.
Absolutely, and I wish you well with that. But he clearly wants to be some kind of martyr to his warped cause, his twisted cause. What I'd like to see is that either you guys or the police do prosecute him and he gets 10 years or something, 5 years. Then we'll see what a hero is. Why do you think, Gideon, that someone like Roger Waters would end up with this kind of obsession? Because I know someone who's worked with him. It's his lifelong obsession, a kind of pathological hatred of Israel, and frankly a pathological hatred of Jews as well. How does someone like him end up like that? I mean, you know, everything in his life has worked out quite well. He's worth about, you know, 500 million quid or something. What's going on here?
It's pretty hard to say what's causing all of this, but, you know, it's gone to such a length now. There are certain things which are still red lines, and one of them has got to be expressing support for terrorist organisations. And if you support a terrorist organisation and you go out of your way to make sure that everybody knows it, and you're completely aware that they are a terrorist organisation, you're aware of what the law is, and that is your intention to go out and express support for them, then obviously that's something which has to be a red line. And, you know, at that point, the debate just has to stop. You know, you can have debates about all sorts of different things, but when it comes to supporting a proscribed terrorist organisation, that's got to be where the red lines are drawn and where the law is enforced.
So just to summarise, if the police don't take action against Roger Waters, the campaign against anti-Semitism definitely will.
That's our intention. That's what we're telling the authorities, and hopefully the authorities won't need us to take action, because every time that we privately prosecute, or every time that we have to take the Crown to court, it's essentially a failure of our criminal justice system, because that's the job that the criminal justice system should be doing. It shouldn't be down to individual citizens or Jewish community organisations to step in and fill the void left by the authorities. Of course, we've seen some terrible problems, particularly over the last 2 years since October 7th. It's been atrocious. But hopefully this is a case in which the wheels of justice are turning, and we hope that action will be taken.
Gideon, excellent to talk to you. Come on again soon and keep us posted with this. That's Gideon Falter, Chief Executive of the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism. They're going to take private action against Roger Waters, the Pink Floyd legend, who's made something of a kind of alternative career of his hatred of Israel, which many say spills over into outright anti-Semitism. He's got some kind of obsession going on, as you saw from that video. It'll be very interesting to see, A, if the police do anything, and if they don't, just how the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism does in its private prosecution. But it looks to me, if you're not allowed to support Palestine Action anymore, that look at that video, that's an open and shut case, isn't it? Now, next up, let's take a couple of calls, and then we're going to talk about, we're going to talk about a guy in a cat suit, a gimp, who's patrolling or stalking the beaches of a seaside town and terrifying the local residents. That next, stick around.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
As I say, in just a little while, we're going to be talking about the Catman of the seaside town up in the north near Liverpool. Puts on a gimp suit and crawls around and makes cat noises, growling and stuff. And he's terrified quite a few people. In the middle of the night, or, you know, in the dusk, people walking their dogs suddenly see this figure. And it's reminding people of the Gimp of Somerset from a few years back. So we're going to find out why anyone would want to do this, to put on a tight sort of restrictive suit with a feline face and go around acting like you're a lion or something. We'll talk about that after the next break. But first, let's take a quick call. Let's talk to Bex in Essex. Hello, Bex.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm very, very well. What would you like to talk about?
I was just sitting there thinking, when you're talking about the asylum seekers and all the money gets spent on everything, left, right and centre after their luxurious lifestyles that they are living, it dawned on me that when we talk about taxpayers' money, we don't humanise that money. So if you're on 37k a year, for example, average wage, $7,000 of that approximately is going to taxes, which is paying for their luxury lifestyles. £7,000. What could we do with that money? That's 2 holidays a year for most families.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, we should. That's a good word. Humanise the kind of money involved. I mean, if you want to sort of take that on a bigger scale, as I've been saying, last week alone, 2,599 migrants came across the Channel illegally. Over the next year, because each migrant costs us £40,000 a year, over the next year, those 2,599 migrants will cost you, me, British taxpayers, £140 million. The money this is costing us is a scandal. It's an absolute scandal.
Yeah, we are giving up our luxuries, our treats, the things that we go to work for. We give up all our time to go to work, and what do we get at the end of it? We don't get luxuries because everything goes up. The government, they just squander money at the wall. A couple of weeks ago, they upgraded, I don't know if you saw this, they upgraded their logo, the gov.uk logo.
Oh yeah, they spent £500,000 on it to move the dot or something.
£500,000 to move the bloody dot.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. They're just squandering our money up the wall. They don't care. And I don't know whether the Tories were just as bad, but this is just insane. It doesn't cost £500,000, so they could buy a house for that.
Yeah, I think that the Tories were bad, very, very bad. But as with almost all aspects of governing this country, the Tories for 14 years screwed it up in spades. They completely screwed up. They made a massive mess of it, particularly the migrant crisis. And then in came Labour, the loveless landslide. They got voted in, Bex, because everybody was sick to death of the Tories. And what Labour have managed to do, and it's no mean feat, they've managed to make matters even worse. So we're now living in a shambles. We're living in a shambles, Bex. We really are. And God knows what's going to happen for the next 4 years. But it's a frightening prospect. Yeah, good point about the taxpayers' money. And thanks for the phone call. Good to talk to you. Call me again. Bex in Essex. Let's go to break now. And when we come back, we'll talk about the guy in the cat suit.
The whole scheme needs to be scrapped. I'm sorry, it is so rotten to the core that the whole thing needs to be completely dismantled, and we can perhaps start again.
Ryan, you'll be probably right about this today. Norman Tebbit, one of Margaret Thatcher's most loyal supporters during her years of power, has died at the age of 94. A remarkable man, Norman Tebbit, wasn't he? He was terribly badly injured in the Brighton bombing.
Tuesday on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. There's a catsuit prowler who's got locals feline terrified. See what I did there? He's a guy in a gimp suit. They're calling him Panther Man. What he does is he stalks the area, the sand dunes on the seaside, near a pub called the Derby Pool Harvester, and that's in Wallasey, Merseyside. As I say, locals call him the Panther Man. And one or two dog walkers, there he is, have been absolutely terrified. Others say they found it quite funny. He apparently writhes around and flashes his arms at them and sort of growls and then runs away. But I mean, you know, you can imagine it. If the sun, it's getting dark, you're taking your dog for a walk, it's absolutely terrifying. People are saying it is reminiscent of the Somerset gimp who back in 2023 stalked villagers in Somerset, kept going up to cars and scaring the hell out of them. That's another picture of the Wallasey guy, the Panther Man. Anyway, the Somerset gimp turned out to be a gardener called Joshua Hunt, who was fined £100. But again, all done up in this tight leather suit. So I wonder what kind of person would do this. Let's talk to a psychologist and narcissist expert, a man who shared some of Meghan's delicious produce with me. We ate her jam together. Richard Grannon, welcome back, mate.
Bonded by jam.
Bonded by
jam.
jam.
Thank you very much for having me on again.
Very special experience that was. Anyway, I've still got the jam at home. I bring it out at dinner parties. It's my sort of style. Look, anyone who wants some Meghan jam, they'll go, no thanks. Right, what sort of a man, Richard, would do this? The Panther Man. He's basically got this super tight suit on, you know, with the mask, and he looks a bit like a cat, and apparently flashes his arms around, makes growling noises like a kind of lion or something, and then runs up the hill. What sort of person would do that? Why would you do that?
There's a few different options. I mean, it could be a kind of sexual fetish that's attached to a fantasy of being an animal. It does seem to be risk-taking behavior because, you know, I hope nobody gets hurt, but people have big, dangerous dogs, and if they're set upon at night, they might release the dogs on him, or somebody might beat him up if they don't think it's funny. So it is risky. It's a risky behavior. It's exhibitionistic. He wants to be seen. He wants people to take photos and videos of him, and I'm sure he's loving the attention he's getting in the media. So yeah, there are different possible causes of this kind of a behavior. There's also autism spectrum, possibly for a subtype of autism where people get hyper-focused, they get very fascinated with one particular thing, and they're not aware of the potential social consequences of engaging in that hyper-focused activity. So yeah, multiple options.
It's vaguely speaking, it's your part of the world, isn't it? Is it a sort of sand dune-y type of a beach? Because the beaches are pretty big up there, aren't they?
Yeah, Wallasey is just down the road from my hometown of Bebington, and we've got family members who are from Wallasey, and I've not known any of them to dress up like a panther. But yes,
one would hope not.
not yet. They might after this. But yes, there are some sand dunes there. There are steps there. I wouldn't be delighted. I don't think I'd think it was funny at night time if I was walking my dog. I wouldn't find it particularly hilarious, but I mean, it could also just be a public stunt. We have to entertain that possibility as well, I suppose.
Well, one person said that they found it very, very funny, but another guy, you know, obviously a burly middle-aged bloke, said he'd never been more terrified in his life. So you can imagine it. I assume people don't take their dogs for a walk when it's pitch black at night, but I think you're talking about a time when the sun's coming down, that, you know, it's getting shadowy. So this guy, the Panther Man, presumably gets off on terrifying people.
It seems to be. I mean, you know, if you take a sort of a pathological, strange, antisocial behaviour, and you take it out of context and you don't know the person who's performing it, it's quite hard because there there are several different mental health clusters that could probably justify it. Like I say, it could be a sexual fetish. It could be something autism spectrum disorder. It could be delusional. He may believe that he is an animal, or find comfort in pretending to be an animal. So yeah, without speaking to him, it would be difficult to say exactly why he's doing it. It is not normal behaviour from people from the Wirral. I want to make that clear. The Scousers are friends across the water. They'll say, yeah, this is just normal Wirral behaviour. It is not. I deny those accusations.
I never said that either. I never said that either. I mean, this presumably, you know, it's reasonable to conclude this guy's got some psychological problems. I mean, could you cure this man of his penchant for going around dressed as a panther?
I don't know if you could cure it if somebody's deeply into this. I mean, you know, another option I didn't mention before, some people go through difficult periods of their life and they do go into temporary psychotic breaks. This could be seen as maybe a childlike behavior. Even the fact that you mentioned that the outfit is restrictive. So we know, again, with autism spectrum disorder, there can be this desire to have that restriction or weight on the body because it's self-soothing. This may be a very self-soothing behavior for him. So if it is a temporary, if it's caused by a difficult scenario in life, talk therapy would I'm sure help him, and we'd find healthier ways for him to process whatever it is he's processing. If he's deeply attached to it as a sexual fetish or a sexual paraphilia, the prognosis is not as optimistic.
Well, maybe we can have him round for dinner and give him a can of whiskers or something like that. Before you go, Richard, let's talk about old Meghan. Since you came into the studio and tested her food, you've been observing her behaviour, what you might say her narcissistic behaviour, seems to have increased. She seems to be kind of almost pathologically trying to hog the limelight, or constantly trying to make the news, constantly going on to Instagram. Yes, you could say she's trying to flog her products that we tasted, but I think there might be a little more than that. What do you think's going on with her?
I think that, you know, based on, you know, things like the interview that we did, which was very, very positively received, and the different articles, there's a lot more pushback for this sort of blatant narcissistic exhibitionism, the blatant hypocrisy, this brand pushing. You know, it almost feels like she's out of date and out of step. I think her effort to push herself as a brand-based influencer for financial gain would have played a lot better 10 years ago in 2015, when people are a little bit more naive and a little bit less social media savvy. It's out of date, it's out of place. So she'll be receiving a lot of negative feedback. All of that creates narcissistic injury, which leads to narcissistic depletion, which would have her feeling very flat and empty and hedonic, and so she would crave more spikes of narcissistic pleasure through approval-seeking behavior. Now, that approval-seeking behavior to people outside of the narcissism delusion, quite obnoxious and grabby.
Yeah, that kind of figures. Well, listen, you must come on and talk about this at greater length. But in the meantime, good to talk to you. Good to catch up, Richard. Richard Granner there, psychologist and narcissist expert. When we come back, the Jeffrey Epstein list. We need to talk about that. Stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Fairly soon I'm going to be taking your calls, read some of your messages, and also we'll play out your WhatsApp voice notes. That'll be in about 20-25 minutes or so. So you know the number, 03444991000. I'm just looking at the big banquet, the state banquet. The King's just coming in. Macron's coming in, all dressed up in their bizarre uniforms. So they're all ready for this big meal. The King's going to say there are no borders between Britain and France. Well, you imagine, yes, there are. I'm afraid you're kind of wrong on that one. The trouble is, we don't bother observing them. But anyway, you know the question, what on earth are we doing? Why are we giving this man, who obviously can't stand Britain, why are we giving him this special treatment? What's this about? 03444991000, especially when over the years France has taken £771 million off of Britain to patrol their beaches properly and stop the migrants and stop the boats, but they haven't stopped any migrants and they haven't stopped any boats. So why are we giving this guy all this special treatment? 03444991000. Right, before we get to that though, let's talk about the famous Jeffrey Epstein list. For some time now, since the death of Jeffrey Epstein, in fact, they say that a number of the large number of VIP men, rich and famous men, have been quaking in their boots or terrified that Jeffrey Epstein's client list of the VIP men who enjoyed his hospitality on what they called Pedo Island, his island in the Caribbean, and they were flown down there on what they called the Lolita Express, which was his private jet. And they say that nefarious things went on there, that young girls were procured for sex, and these important men at the time of their lives, sometimes with girls that were underage. So for some time, all of these people have been worried. Now, they say that on the list, this doesn't necessarily mean that they took part in anything unlawful or nefarious, but, you know, Donald Trump is known to be an associate of Jeffrey Epstein, so was Bill Clinton, and the list goes on. So, today, though, the Department of Justice over in the States closed the case, finding that there was nothing on this list that proved any criminal activity, if indeed the list existed at all, and the FBI has subsequently, as a result, closed their investigation. So this, in effect, if they were ever guilty, exonerates Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, and of course our very own Prince Charming, Prince Andrew, the not so grand old Duke of York. So what's going on here? Let's talk to American attorney and journalist Shondell Summer. Welcome, Shondell.
Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm very, very well. Before we talk, let's have a look at Caroline Leavitt, the White House spokesman, what she had to say on the Epstein files today on C-SPAN. Have a look.
The Trump administration is committed to truth and to transparency. That's why the Attorney General and the FBI Director pledged at the President's direction to do an exhaustive review of all of the files related to Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and his death. And they put out a memo in conclusion of that review. There was material they did not release because, frankly, it was incredibly graphic and it contained child pornography, which is not something that's appropriate for public consumption. But they committed to an exhaustive investigation. That's what they did, and they provided the results of that. That's transparency.
Do you agree, Shondell? Is that transparency?
Well, they did a review. How thorough it was, I guess, remains to be seen. But at this point, if they close the case, there will be the ability of attorneys or other individuals to do freedom of information request at to get the entire file and determine what's in it. They're going to redact a lot of the information about who the victims were. They may redact information about people who are innocent, whose names just happen to be in the file. But basically, they've already released most of the damaging, if you will, information about it. The associations between Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein is well known, well documented. There's the references to Bill Clinton, Alan Dershowitz, and of course Donald Trump. But all of those individuals claim merely a social connection to Jeffrey Epstein and not some type of lewd or lascivious participation in any behavior that Jeffrey Epstein was known for.
Yeah, you see, far be it from me to leap to the defence of all these very important, powerful men who've been associated with Jeffrey Epstein and may or may not have visited what we call Pedo Island, his private island down in the Caribbean. Far be it from me to sort of defend them, but the fact that they could be on lists compiled by Epstein, even passenger manifests on his private jet, the fact that they are recorded as visiting this island doesn't prove that they took part in nefarious activities, does it? I assume this is the nature of why the FBI have kind of abandoned the case, that they've got no proof of any wrongdoing down there.
I agree with you. I think being on a flight log or simply being in a criminal's contact list in their black book, I think is what they're referring to it as, does not necessarily mean you participated in any kind of nefarious activities. And I've always felt like, and I know this was a very unpopular opinion, that Prince Andrew kind of got a raw deal because of the fact that the only real evidence leaking him to Victoria Jeffrey was the fact that there was a photograph, but when pushed, Miss Jeffrey's attorneys could not produce the original of the photograph. So I've always thought that that was suspicious, and perhaps he was being tied into something that was not necessarily inappropriate behavior.
Yeah, you would argue, though, you would say, well, if he was entirely innocent and had nothing to hide, why on earth would he give Virginia Giuffre $12 million not to pursue him in the civil court? So there's two sides to that argument, but you're right, he's denied any wrongdoing, and as such, we sort of have to accept that. And of course, the result of this development today will be that Prince Andrew will be able to fly to the States again, not worrying about possibly having his collar felt by the FBI. So it's quite a good day for him. What about, though, Donald Trump? I mean, of course, critics are saying he's organised this. He's organised the closing of this case, because if the case went forward, it would be very bad news for him. What do you think about that, Shondell?
Well, I find it interesting that the people attacking him are his strongest devotees. They are the MAGA base, and they are, by their very nature, conspiratorially oriented. And the idea that there was no client list has irked them, especially Elon Musk, who has in the past suggested there was a connection between Epstein and Donald Trump, and that Donald Trump was going to appear in the Epstein files. So it's curious to me that they have really been so outraged by the fact that Donald Trump's not in any of these documents, at least according to the FBI and the DOJ. However, that's kind of the nature of conspiracies. I guess they go for you and against you.
Yeah.
The connection between Epstein and Donald Trump, to me, was always tenuous. Donald Trump had said he wasn't a fan of Epstein, that they had had some falling out over money, and he never really associated with him after that. But, you know, Jeffrey Epstein was a fixture in those Palm Beach circles. And so, yes, you do make associations, and they might not necessarily be the most upstanding individuals.
So Elon Musk, formerly the president's best friend, now his worst enemy, as it were, he tweeted in response to this, "This is the final straw." Of course, he tweeted previously during his sort of falling out with President, Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That was his big bombshell. But
he took it back. He said he went too far, which tells me his lawyers got to him and said, hey, you're going to get sued for libel and you've got a lot of money to put out there on the table.
Yeah, exactly right. And again, it depends what we mean by client list. If Epstein had a list of friends may have included Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Dershowitz, whoever, who he flew down to his island for a weekend of fun or whatever. Unless you've got nefarious detailed suggestions that laws were broken then, there's nothing wrong with being on this list. The suggestion, of course, was that Epstein himself, arguably quite a nefarious individual, was keeping a client list with a view to blackmailing these people. Now, that is what both the Department of Justice and the FBI have dismissed. They've said that there's no credible evidence that Epstein had a client list to blackmail prominent individuals. So that, I think, is at the heart of this. Whatever Epstein was providing for these people, whatever he was doing with them, he didn't keep written records of any potential law breaking. Ergo, all that they've got is lists of names, I assume.
That's correct. However, Pam Bondi, in a previous interview, had suggested that the list was on her desk. And that is what has infuriated the MAGA base and also Elon Musk because of the statement she made. Even one of Trump's most inflammatory allies, a woman named Laura Loomer, has suggested that Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, be fired for making that statement if the list did not exist. And of course, there's always going to be some type of suspicion around the death of Jeffrey Epstein because he was in federal custody and you're not supposed to be able to have access to items which would allow you to commit suicide when you're in federal custody. They're supposed to have cameras that watch people who are suicide risks, but yet he was able to commit suicide supposedly because the cameras were out. So that is always going to be right up there with the greatest conspiracies in the history of the world, is whether or not Jeffrey Epstein was murdered by some person who's rich and powerful and did not want the information that he has to come out.
Yeah, well, that element of the potential suicide or not, was he murdered and all that, plus what we're talking about, trust me, this will keep the National Enquirer going for about the next 20 years at least. Here's one thing that sort of I find slightly uncomfortable about all this, Chandel. It is that, again, we've got to be careful of saying about what the hell was going on, but, in all of this, in this entire saga of the life of Jeffrey Epstein and the men that he entertained, and we know that there were a lot of young women around, in kind of quite suspicious circumstances. None of it was particularly sort of savoury in its nature. So something was going on here, but I don't think anyone will ever be nailed for it. But you know what makes me uncomfortable? In all of this, this is a story of men playing, having fun with young women. In all of this, one person has gone to jail, and it's a woman, Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, I'm not saying that she doesn't deserve to be in jail, but it's uncomfortable to me that she's the only person taking the rap for whatever went on here.
Well, Jeffrey Epstein actually had, there was a prosecution of Jeffrey Epstein,
I suppose you're
but he
right,
basically got a slap on the wrist, probationary home confinement type of sentence, and was out again. And then they were they were re-upping that prosecution during sort of the Me Too era. And you're right, Ghislaine, and you probably can say it better than I can.
It's Ghislaine. It's all like
Ghislaine is serving an incredibly lengthy sentence simply for being the procurer of young women for Jeffrey Epstein. And the bottom line is that for women, besides the obvious signal that you're going to get in trouble for whatever men do, besides what the point you were making, the sad thing is that women would stoop to such type of behavior in order to please some man, in order to satisfy his sexual perversion. And that's what's really sad, especially a woman like her who comes from some standing in society and did not necessarily have to kowtow to someone like Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, I guess there's a lot of money involved for her and for the victims, if you like. How's it playing over there in the States, Chandel? Because, I mean, it's quite a big story over here, but I'd imagine it's pretty massive over there, isn't it?
Well, it's interesting. It is kind of a bi-worldly story. You've got the Prince Andrew element, which kind of keeps, I guess, people in the UK interested. And then you've got the whole Donald Trump, Bill Clinton, Alan Dershowitz, all these other big names over here that keeps everyone interested. So it is a very interesting and fascinating story. But the most important thing that's come out is the schism between Elon Musk and the fact that Elon Musk seems to have some insider info as to Donald Trump being on that list. And the way it was so summarily dismissed is really fueling conspiracy theories about the fact that, you know, Trump just controls everything. I mean, he doesn't really seem to care what the backlash is going to be, probably because he's a lame duck president and he's not running again. So I think he just pretty much thinks he can do whatever he wants. And he has all of his minions who follow his orders to do whatever he suggests is in his best interest. So I think that's kind of the story behind it, is how quickly it dissolved in terms of any information.
Yeah, it's going to be the new big conspiracy theory subject. There's no doubt about that. As I say, we'll be reading about this in the National Enquirer in 20 years' time. I guarantee you. You know, John Benet Ramsey. When was that? When did she?
That had to have been in the
early 90s, late 80s, and they still write about it every week, don't they?
Well, they found out so much more information, and the chemical testing has been improved since the time that it happened. They've pretty much exonerated the parents. And I guess we'll never know who actually did that, but it's a very sad and chilling tale of murder in the United States, no question about it.
Yeah, I mean, but it is that, just like this, the Epstein files, it is that element, the element of not knowing. And that vacuum is always filled by the conspiracy theories, and that's what sells supermarket tabloids, if you know what I mean. Listen,
not to mention the media, because especially in the John Benet Ramsey case, the media fueled those indictments. The media was the one who really targeted the parents.
Yeah, I know.
And as a result, they were investigated and eventually exonerated, but the media companies that did that were sued, and Mr. Ramsey, John Ramsey, won significant amounts of money for the very troubling period of time when he was accused without a trial.
Absolutely, absolutely. But again, these cases are fascinating, and the Epstein files are also fascinating. I dare say, as I say, we'll be talking about these for many years to come. Chandel, how excellent to talk to you. Thank you very much for your time. That's Chandel Sommer, American attorney and journalist about the Epstein files. Interesting stuff. Listen, we're going to go to break now. When we come back, your calls, your WhatsApp voice notes, and your written texts and messages. I'll read some of them out. So stay tuned, folks.
The deal on the table at the moment is a terrible one. Terrible. It would have a 60-day ceasefire. Israel would get only 10 living hostages out of 20, so it keeps 10 trapped there. 18 bodies, another 12 bodies trapped there, and basically gives Hamas a seat at the table to negotiate what happens the day after. The deal that the Qataris are proposing basically allows Hamas to keep on to living and dead hostages as bargaining chips to try to survive the war that it started.
A bit of breaking news just before we let you go, Ryan. You'll be probably writing about this today. Norman Tebbit, one of Margaret Thatcher's most loyal supporters during her years of power, has died at the age of 94. A remarkable man, Norman Tebbit, wasn't he? He was terribly badly injured in the Brighton bombing. His wife was, well, I think...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Just looking at pictures, television pictures of the state banquet for Emmanuel Macron. Where's Bridget, by the way? Is she with him? Anyway, it's about 100 people there or something. Massive, great table, absolute opulence. The king's on his feet making his speech about there being no borders between France and Britain. Yes, there are! There are supposed to be. We don't want that kind of speech. Anyway, there they all are, tucking into a fabulous banquet in all their finery. No cost of living crisis there. You don't have to worry about money if you're in these circles. Good, isn't it? Good, isn't it? While you struggle, these people tuck in at state banquets for the goddamn French. I mean, come on. Come on, what have they done for us? Why are we giving this guy all of this? Anyway, let's get to your phone calls and your WhatsApp voice notes. Let's start with a couple of WhatsApp voice notes, shall we? There's KP on Starmer.
You don't become the head of the CPS if you're completely dumb. He can't be as dumb as we think he is. He must be aware that every single decision he is making, he is systematically destroying this country. Every single one. And in the end, I think we'll have to go bankrupt and go cap in hand to the EU. Just what he wants. That's my opinion.
I take your point, KP, but he is that stupid. He really is. To be the Director of Public Prosecutions, you don't have to be that bright. You've seen the way the Crown Prosecution Service works? Only an idiot could run that outfit, I'll tell you, and Starmer's your man. Should we listen to another one on Starmer? This is Peter.
Hi, Kevin. Of course we should stop legal aid being given to these human rights lawyers. I mean, English people can't get legal aid for anything anymore unless they are really, really hard up. So no, make the organisations that support or welcome the immigrants, make them pay. I'm sure they've got plenty of money.
Yeah, I mean, but why do we give them legal aid? This is what we should do. This would be the first thing we should do. If you must give them 4-star hotels and free food and 50 quid a week and all that, dentists, doctors, yeah, okay. But if they want to fight their case to stay after they broke into our country, we say, fine. How much money you got in your bank account? Because you're paying for it. If we didn't pay for them, they wouldn't be coming over. I mean, you can imagine them on the north coast of France going, you know when you get over there, those idiot Brits, they even pay for your lawyers. It is absolutely crazy. It is crazy. Let's talk to Graham in Berkshire. Hi, Graham.
Hi. Hi, Kevin. Hope you're doing okay.
I'm doing all right, I suppose, with one thing and another. You want to talk about Macron?
I suppose we have to.
Yeah. He's on his feet now at the state banquet, making his, no doubt, absolutely compelling speech.
Maybe he's going to actually offer us back Normandy, Calais, Aquitaine.
Do you think?
And Anjou, which were once ours.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure we want them, but I doubt that somehow, Graham.
But I mean, the other thing is the immigrants that are coming in. If they're just come in and they're getting straight onto riding Deliveroo or whatever,
bikes, which many of them are, we found out last week.
And insurance.
Sorry, say that again, mate.
How have they got driving licences, insurance?
Well, there's bicycles. Delivery.
Well, even charged one's being charged.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think you need a license for them. I mean, that's what it is. It's unlicensed, legally unlicensed two-wheel cycles, basically. So
then, of course, you've got the situation of why aren't they paying tax on them? Their income on the grounds that even prostitution has to pay tax.
Yeah, but Graham, officially they're not even employed. Do you see what I mean? This is all done, under the counter. They turn up. They're not supposed to work for they're not supposed to work while they're waiting for their asylum decisions. So officially they shouldn't be working at all, but they work unofficially. Sometimes apparently within hours of arriving.
However, if they receive any form of income, and it can be proved, it can be taxed, because there was a big case about it in the 1960s.
Yeah, but it's not that easy to prove, because they're paid by a kind of pool. So basically, you have one person running an app, an account with, say, Deliveroo or Uber Eats or Just Eat, right? So there's one person, and they're allowed to subcontract. And there was one particular account had 20,000 people in it. So the money comes in to that person, and then it is divided up between all the delivery drivers, or the delivery riders, and it's just cash in hand. So there's no real, or hitherto there's been no real kind of official recording of who's being paid what. It's cowboy country, Graham.
Yeah, so I suppose we're then looking at how you can prove that the money's been obtained, therefore illegally, and therefore it can then be done under the process of crime.
Yeah, but we probably won't bother. But I take your point. The thing is, I think that, to be fair, since last week when the Sun newspaper exposed all of this, revealed all of this, I think life has become a lot more difficult for these migrants illegally delivering food for these food delivery services. So hopefully it'll get stamped out. I think it's probably, as a practice, is in some trouble because it's been exposed by the press.
Well, yeah, I mean, what are the security guards doing that we're paying for, if they're not reporting this sort of thing?
So you're approaching this from something from a logical standpoint. As I say, this is cowboy country. Nobody's really doing anything that they should do. We shouldn't be letting them in the country. We shouldn't be putting them in hotels. We shouldn't be giving them welfare. We shouldn't be giving them doctors and dentists and free lawyers, but we're doing it.
Oh, yeah, it's like the French are saying, well, they're only going to stab one boat because it was too dangerous to go across. But if you overload those boats, they're going to be dangerous. So
yeah, that wasn't why they did it, though, was it? That wasn't why they stabbed that boat.
No,
they stabbed that boat because just by lucky coincidence, a BBC film crew and reporter was standing there, right there when they did it. They did it for the cameras ahead of Macron's visit to say, look, Entente cordiale. Look at how Britain and France are working together to solve the migrant crisis. Well, Britain isn't doing very much to solve it, and France is doing even less. France is doing nothing. All France wants to do is wave goodbye to the migrants and make sure they get to Britain so they don't have to bother with them anymore. We've given them £771 million over the years for them to basically do nothing. Not a very good deal. Graham, I know where you're coming from, but the first thing you have to understand about the migrant crisis is it's a total mess, and most of it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But good call. Thank you for ringing. Call me again. Graham in Berkshire. Shall we go to... Yeah, let's go to break. When we come back, we'll talk to Matt in Cheshire. Stay where you are, Matt.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Steve has sent a text in saying, why are we doing this with Macron? Is it because it's the start of us cozying back up to the EU and U-turning on Brexit? I don't think it's the start of that. I think that process is very much underway and has been since, I don't know, about July the 4th last year. What happened then? Oh, I know. We made the massive mistake of voting Labour in. Keir Starmer is getting us back into the EU in all but name, isn't he? Here is G. G says about Jeffrey Epstein. So if no one is getting charged in relation to Epstein, that doesn't mean he was innocent. Why would he commit suicide? Well, we know he wasn't innocent, G, because he'd already done time for paedophile sex offences. He committed suicide because he was back inside and it wasn't looking good. But a lot of people say he didn't commit suicide. They say he was killed in his prison cell to protect the powerful men that he had lots of nefarious information about. But today, the FBI are saying that is not the case. You can make up your mind what you think is true. Should we play a quick voice note? We've got a lot of voice notes tonight. This is Ken on the legal aid issue.
Evening, Kev. So the government is earmarking 60 million quid to give asylum seekers in legal aid to fight our own legal system. Hello? Is it me?
Ken, I know. It's insane. It's insane. They come here, they break in, they come across the channel illegally, break into our country. Nearly all of them don't have passports or documents because they've thrown them in the sea in the English Channel. And then we start putting them in hotels, giving them money and all that kind of stuff. But the maddest thing is, when you've broken into our country illegally, here's like £200,000 to fight your case to stay. We're paying for this. We're paying for this madness. As I say, if nothing else, why don't we stop doing that? Just say to these asylum seekers when they get here, these migrants, all right, you want to seek asylum? You want to apply for asylum, okay, that's your right within international law. How are you going to pay for the case? Because we're not paying for it. So you better have enough money to pay for your lawyers. Because trust me, these immigration lawyers, if they find out that the migrants don't have money to pay them, they'll be out of there like lightning. Yeah, let's stop the legal aid. It's just a thought. Just a thought. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Matt in Cheshire. Hello, Matt.
Hi, good evening, Kev.
Hi.
I'm 50 and I've been a monarchist most of my life, but I'm retracting my support for the monarchy today. I've given Charles a fair crack of the whip since he became king. I had my doubts about him, but I've come to the conclusion he's a buffoon, and he basically supports the people that hate him the most, and he's a WEF shill. He hates all of us, and he has no interest in the democratic process in Britain.
Well, he doesn't know much about it, does he? He's not really a symbol of democracy. He's a symbol of very much the opposite of that. I mean, I wouldn't give up on the monarchy because of Charles. I think Charles essentially is a decent old boy. He thinks he's doing the right thing. He's got the right kind of spirit, but he's so wrong about so much. I mean, his green claptrap, his obsession with net zero. I mean, you know, we're told that the royals aren't supposed to be involved in politics. Well, he never ceases giving speeches about the planet dying and what we've all got to do. He doesn't do very much. He's just cancelled the royal train so he can fly everywhere by plane. So you can take his green message with a pinch of hypocritical salt, but also this speech he's making tonight. He's just made it at this banquet, the French state visit banquet. He actually said there are no borders between Britain and France.
That's what made my decision, Kev. I mean, at the end of the day, he's like Stanley Johnson. He seems okay on the surface, but he's totally dangerous, and he's basically against the majority of British people and what we want.
Yeah. If he was in a political party, Matt, I think he'd be on the left wing of the Lib Dems. That would be about it. But yeah, I mean, he does talk a lot of claptrap. He really does. And there are no I mean, him saying that, there are no borders between Britain and France today. You know, now in Britain in 2025, that is a really, really tone-deaf thing to say, isn't it? Because there is a border. There's a huge border between Britain and France. There's also 21 miles of sea. And what the majority of people want, Your Majesty, if you're watching, I know you're not because you're at that banquet, is for that border to be enforced. Right, Matt?
There's one issue, Kev, that when people put the TV on when they're at home that enrages the British public, it is the people coming across that 21 miles. It's almost like he said that to antagonise people and to show Macron that we're a class above them all. We're not interested in what the wetbacks think. You know, we're not interested in that. We've got our own world that we decide. We make the big decisions. All they do is vote every 5 years, and we decide what happens in between.
Yeah, I mean, we are the sort of pawns in a democratic game, if you like, and we're finding out just how bad that game can be because we're stuck with Labour for 4 more years. Yeah, as I say, I found King Charles's no borders between France and Britain speech to be actually, you know, incredibly annoying, very infuriating. He shouldn't be making speeches like that. It's kind of bordering on political. You know, and fairly soon he'll make another speech about saving the planet, about how we've all got to, you know, not go on holiday and things like that while he jets around the world. He's got so many air miles, you know, you wouldn't believe it. As I say, you know, he goes on about being green. He just axed the Royal Train. Well, he should be taking the train, not the plane, shouldn't he? But as I say, hypocrisy is the establishment's middle name, Matt, and it always was. Good call, mate. Thank you for ringing, Matt in Cheshire. Yeah, we've got time. Let's go to Herbie in Harrow. How are you doing, Herbie?
Very well, thank you. Good evening, Kevin.
Hi.
Kevin, I think Macron's here to walk all over our weak Prime Minister that doesn't have a clue who's going to be licking Macron's boots to get back in the EU or to get something there from the EU, whatever he wants to do. You know, the man's out of control anyway. And Macron knows he's a weak Prime Minister.
Well, Macron's a very weak president as well. They're both in a...
Well, yeah.
Macron's in a politically is in a much weaker state than Starmer. But yes, what you've got here is two globalists communing, preening themselves on this mystifying, absolutely pointless state visit. What is it all about, do you think, Herbie? Why are we doing this? I'm just looking at the banquet on the TV here. That alone, that is a lot of money down the drain. This entire visit will cost a damn fortune. I mean, why? Why are we doing this for this guy? France, what has France done for us in recent history, particularly on the migrant crisis? Anything at all?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing, Kevin. And the thing is that, you know, the king himself is buttering up to them as well. Instead of being a strong nation, we've shown ourselves as a weak nation with no idea where to go, what to do. You know, they're walking all over us, they're doing what they like, and we're doing nothing to defend ourselves. What kind of a nation are we? Stupid.
Yeah, well, apparently Starmer's going to sit Macron down and say, you've got to get my one in, one out plan, which is crazy, which is just Britain and France playing swap the foreigner. There's no point in that whatsoever. So that's what he's going to nail him on. That, by the way, will never happen because there are 5 European nations who don't want it, and the European Commission is in on the case. They don't want it either. So it's not going to happen anyway. But what Starmer should be talking to Macron about is, what the hell have you done for that £771 million that we've given you over the years?
Spent it. Yeah. I spent it. I've had a great time, thank you, Great Britain, you know, for entertaining me, and allow me to have the life of luxury that I've got while you have to suffer to have all these immigrants coming over, ruining your way of life. I'm passing the problem to you, thank you, and you're paying me to do it. Thank you very much. That's why I'm here.
That's all they want to do, the French. They just want to say au revoir to the migrants. Don't come back. Enjoy Britain. It's been not nice knowing you. That literally is their attitude. Herbie, it's a basket case and will continue to be so. Good to talk to you, mate, as always. Herbie in Harrow. Steve on legal aid?
So let me get this right. We are going to give £61 million to immigration lawyers who charge an absolute fortune. But at the same time, and when I say we, I mean the Labour Party, the government, obviously, they are going to take away money from disabled kids and kids with needs. State of this country, the absolute state of it. Why I'm surprised, I don't know.
It's such a good point. That is such a good point. We just heard that special needs kids are now going to be left out of the mix because we haven't got enough money, allegedly. Hang on a second, what have we got here? Banquet. This banquet I'm watching, this is actually kind of obscenely lavish banquet, given that people are struggling in this country at the moment. This is the information I've got. While the UK has not released exact figures, the last reciprocal state banquet, which was King Charles's visit to France in September 2023, cost the Elysee, the Paris government, approximately £400,000. Given the similarities in scale, menu, floral decor and venue, the Windsor banquet is likely to cost between £300,000 and £500,000, roughly comparable to what the French paid when they treated King Charles to a lavish dinner a couple of years ago. So September 23. So this dinner alone might be costing us between £300,000 and £500,000. If that £500,000 dinner, I don't know. It just doesn't sit right with me. I mean, I'll be a lot happier when it's Donald Trump. At least there's a reason for that. At least we get the odd thing back from America. At least it's worth being friendly with the Americans. I'm not sure there's any point in being friendly with the French at all, who have hated our guts ever since we had the temerity to leave their beloved little Brussels club, the EU. So here we are. Yeah. Emmanuel and Bridget, enjoy your £500,000 dinner. Unbelievable. Let's go to break. More of your calls next.
I think, generally speaking, all the deals are done well away from the state visit. Yeah. The conversations will have been going on a long time. They'll be between officials. And then it's kind of the wrap party, if you like. that you have the big celebration, the big gala, and it makes everyone look great. We know in diplomatic terms that state visits do have an impact.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Petri Hoskin will be in the studio in just a little while to let you know what she's got lined up for your entertainment between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m, taking you into the small hours. Before that, though, let's go back to lots and lots of WhatsApp voice notes tonight. A couple more to go. This is Carl on the one-in, one-out system.
I'll tell you what Keir Starmer's doing regarding this one in and one out. Very, very clever. If he gives one back to France and then in return we get somebody who is entitled to be here because they have family over there, they're then classed as illegal because they're coming through the legal routes. And the one going out is obviously somebody who's been on a boat who's illegal. And also he knows that the legal numbers are going to be coming down in the next year or two because of the changes that the Tories made just before they left. So we can afford to put some migrants onto the legal numbers, so we'll turn around and say, right, I've smashed the gangs, I've stopped the boats, and the illegal numbers are still coming down. I've got him sus, mate.
To an extent, except he hasn't smashed any gangs and he never will. Well, there were two objections I got to this one-in, one-out system. One, it's never going to happen. It will never, ever get off the ground. And secondly, I just want, you know, the basic sort of premise of the migrant crisis is numerical. We can't take any more people. This country is full. We've got 70 million people in a country. You know, when I was a kid, about 50 million people, and it's just going up and up and up. We are full. Our infrastructure is stretched to the limit. We don't have enough schools. We don't have enough hospitals, emergency services, everything. Enough accommodation. We don't have enough houses. Everything is stretched to the limit. This country is full. So the migrant crisis, in essence, is a numerical problem. How is it going to be solved? By playing swap the foreigner with France. So you won't get any difference to the numbers because every time we get rid of someone, we'll get someone back. I don't get it. I mean, Starmer says that'll be a deterrent. No, it won't. No, it won't. One last one. This is Rob again on one in, one out.
Hi, Kev. I just thought it's a great idea, like what Starmer is actually doing now, because they had the Rwanda scheme. Remember that, like, failed miserably before he even took off the ground. Anyway, now there'll definitely be no asylum seekers coming over to Britain, because they know now that if they do get over there, they're going to be sent back to France in the swap deal. So instead of like, oh, we're not going because of Rwanda, no, we're not going because of France, they'll end up back there. Genius.
Yeah, I think you're being facetious there, Rob. I get it. Yeah, it's not going to work, basically. It's almost, well, I mean, we never found out if Rwanda would work, but France definitely won't work. That is a ridiculous system. Quick WhatsApp note from Mary. Mary says, Mary in Suffolk, she said, I thought the law in this country was that you could only have one wife, so why are Muslims allowed to go against the law of this land and have numerous wives? Love your show. Thank you for that, Mary. Well, I don't think they are actually officially allowed to do it. I think you're right. It's against the law to have more than one wife, but they seem to be advertising for that. They're saying that if you're a woman, a virgin, Muslim virgin or something, over the age of 35, then you're old, you're a clapped out product, and therefore you can only expect to be a second or a third wife. I mean, it is, I'm sure it's illegal. It's also just morally wrong. Disgusting, disgusting instructions from these semi-human men about how to beat women. You don't have to beat them with a baseball bat. You know, really? The last of the great humanitarians. I hit my wife, but I don't beat her with a baseball bat. That is the tenor of this website. It should be closed down and people should be arrested, because I believe that misogynistic instructions on how to beat women up must be against the law. If not, folks, why not? Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to a new caller. Love a new caller. Nigel in Portsmouth. Hello, Nigel. What would you like to say?
Oh, hello, Kev. This is my first call to you. I've just been watching the wonderful speech that King Charles made. I've got to say,
there are no borders between Britain and France. Yes, there are.
Yes, there are. What a load of old cock.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
I'm sorry.
Would have been good to be there, wouldn't it, Nigel? Be good to be there if you're on that table, that lavish table. Just go. So when he goes, there are no borders between Britain. Like, rubbish.
Absolute rubbish. Sucking up to the French presidents. When do we ever suck up to the French, for God's sake? What's happened to
I don't get it. I don't understand. We believe that tonight's banquet alone might have cost £300,000, maybe even $500,000. That's the banquet alone. Why are we doing it for this little pipsqueak from across the channel?
If you were Steve Khan, you'd think £300,000, that's nothing, because he thinks, half a couple of million's nothing.
That barely pays for his armour-plated fleet of Range Rovers that he goes around in.
I know, but it's a joke.
He said that is the word. That is the word, Nigel.
Up to a failed French president. Where are we going?
I think it's bemusing. It's bemusing. I don't know why we're doing this.
But he won't even help the English people.
Well, exactly. Well, that's the point. We've given these people £771 million over the years to patrol their beaches, stop the migrants, stop the boats. They don't do that. So why are we treating Monsieur Macron and Brigitte to this lavish 3-day state visit? It's beyond me.
All I'd like to see is old Donald Trump out here. Actually.
Well, he'll be next. Now, I
have him for a state visit.
Yeah, I look forward to the Donald Trump state visit because of all the people it will annoy. But there's a reason for keeping in with Trump. Keeping in with Macron, I don't see the point particularly. He hates us anyway because we left his little club, the European Union. Anyway, there you go. I hope they have a lovely time. Nigel, very good to talk to you. Show's coming towards an end, so I've got to go now. But don't make this your last call. That was Nigel. I've got another new caller here, Andy in Dumfries in Scotland. Hello, Andy. What would you like to say?
Hi, Kev. Thanks very much for the show. It does my blood pressure no end of good. A question for you.
I think it's ruining mine, I think, but go on.
There's been a lot of talk about the uplift on the immigration bill to 61 million for the lawyers.
Yes.
How much more is that going to go up for all the translators that are going to be required?
That's a very good point.
Because invariably they can't speak English when they arrive, and those that can suddenly lose the ability when they're challenged by the legal system.
Totally right, Andy. I mean, apart from all their other expenses involved, all of these migrants tend to require translators. And if you look at the bills on hospitals, courts, in the legal area, if you look at the bills for us, we pay for this, for translators, they're astronomical. We're paying hundreds of millions a year on all of this. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But we are the world's soft touch, Andy. But listen, mate, I've got to go because the show's nearly over. I know it's your first call and it was too short, but don't make it your last call. Please call me back. We'll have a proper chat. Good to talk, though, mate. Thanks. Andy in Dumfries in Scotland. Petrie's in the studio. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm all right.
Good. So coming up in a few minutes' time, we're going to be talking to a former postmaster because the first report has come out from the Horizon fiasco at the post office. Came out today talking about the human impact. The next report
possibly
is going to be
13 people killed themselves.
Yeah, possibly 13 have taken their own lives. Others have died waiting. 350 people have died waiting for this compensation and for redress. The next report is going to be the most interesting, but that might be delayed until January. That's whose fault it is, because we know it wasn't these people's fault. So I'm going to be looking into that at 10 o'clock and then asking